Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always,
Eddie of Edward's Truth.
Today we're talking about Bride of Chucky, released October 16th, 1998. This is the 25th anniversary. What do you know?
Woo-hoo-hoo. Just in time.
What do you know? I have like a really annoying story about having like previewing this last night. So I bought the Scream Factory, like the 4Ks that they just released, like a bundle, because it had Bride, Seed, Curse Cult. Yeah, that's the order. And I'm watching Bride of Chucky on 4K, and like halfway through the movie, it started freezing and then skipping over scenes. No. So that was how I watched it. Like I remembered everything, so I didn't like feel the need to go back and try to fix, because even when I did, it kept like freezing up and skipping. But yeah, now I'm in a bad mood. Because now I have to figure out, like, how do I replace that? Is it a thing? But yeah, this is like my favorite franchise, and just to have that bullshit now, I don't know. But anyway, I'm boned up on it. I know what we're talking about today, for once. Yeah. So I think we're ready for it.
Okay, cool. You didn't fall asleep.
No, I did. But I mean, I think I was actually woken up when it froze.
Okay, cool. But you've seen it before, so you can sleep.
I've seen it many a time. What was your first experience?
I didn't see it in the theater, and I think I even saw Freddy vs. Jason before I saw this.
Oh, God.
I can't remember my first time seeing it. It just seems to kind of like have always been in my head, because I've seen it that many times. But I remember buying that DVD that was comprised of only the sequels that were available up until that point. So I think it was probably around like 2006 or so. Yeah. They came out with a release that had 2, 3, Bride, and Seed.
And it was on like one disc, and it was two-sided, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And it had like Chucky's body, like with next to like, the titles or something. It was very strange. But I remember I watched that a lot, and really got into it, and that's when I knew, okay, when I get a Blu-ray, I'm definitely going to want to invest in this. I was fascinated, particularly because I think before that I rented it a lot, because I just remember the special features back when. It's a whole thing for people who weren't around then, youngins. There was a certain time, like at video stores, where the version that you could purchase was the version that you could rent. So you got all the special features anytime you rented the disc. And Bride of Chucky was released when that was still true. Then at a certain point, they realized, you know what, we'll sell a lot more of these special editions of like DVDs and whatnot if we release just the movie and maybe the trailer on the rentals, and release all these fucking special features on like the product that you can buy. That way we can get them renting it and buying it, and we'll fuck them. They're still doing things like that now with like, now we've got new things, that you never saw before. And anyway,
I still feel like I'm waiting for that Halloween 2018 release that will have the original ending and like a director commentary. Not that I need to hear anything he says about any of his movies, but I mean, like
waiting.
Every time there's an announcement, there's like a box set of like the new Halloween movies. I'm just like, oh, is this finally gonna have the stuff that like everyone's been asking for? And they're like, no, no. And at this point, it's just like, do you even have it still? Like, what are your intentions? But we're not talking about that franchise. We're talking about
point
Chucky,
is, Bride of Chucky. I remember it had 2 commentaries, I believe. I think there was one with Ronnie Yu and one with Don Mancini and Jennifer Tilly, and I think Brad Dourif. Maybe he came on a little bit later. I can't remember. I feel like he was there, because I remember Jennifer Tilly talking about towards the end when Tiffany's birthing the seed. I think Don Mancini asked, "What was your research for your point of reference for all this screaming?" And she's like, "It's just the way I imagine it really happening. I think it's just the pain I imagine you going through when you're actually going through childbirth." And Brad Dourif just kind of saying with authority, "Oh, it's nothing like that." Because obviously he's a father, but I always thought it was funny that, you know, he's telling her, no, childbirth isn't that painful, but with innocence, you know, he said it very innocently.
He was in the room.
Yeah. My wife said, no problem. So what problem could there be? But anyway, so I remember watching the special features a lot. I remember reading... that was for Seed, but Jennifer Tilly had like a set diary, and I remember reading that on the special features for Seed a lot. Yeah, I was really fascinated once Jennifer entered the franchise with her point of view as to, like, I was so always just like exhilarated that she had a commentary track for you know, each movie, and I always wanted to hear, what was it like, you know, like totally. She fascinates me.
I honestly don't even remember the first time I saw the movie. It's just always been there. So I might not have seen it in the theater. It might have been like on VHS after it was released, but I distinctly remember the trailer. Because I remember when I think it was in front of H2O. But I remember going to the theater and I remember seeing the poster. And I wasn't familiar with any of the Child's Play movies. Like, I knew who Chucky was to a degree. I didn't really know much about the franchise at that point. But I just remember the huge poster, and all I could think is like, oh, it's Scream 2. But it's like with the dolls. Yeah.
The half faces.
Or the wolf poster or Malice, which Scream 2 then copied for its movie. But no, I saw that immediately just because of my love for Scream 2. I was like, what is this? I have to see it. And then I distinctly remember that very visit to the theater, it playing in front of Halloween H2O. And it's like, I have to see this. So I did. And it's, at the time, it was probably like my favorite. I hadn't even watched the other ones yet, but I went back and revisited them. I'm like, oh no, this is like the future of Chucky, Bride of Chucky. This is like the Chucky, like basically the mentality that we see today, where something new comes out and it's just like, this is the best one because it's brand shiny, spanking new. And now, I mean, like, I've lived with this movie for 25 years, and at this point, there's things that I really love about it, but overall, it's not really that high up there for me in this franchise, and I really do want to get into it because I think that there's going to be a lot to say about this, and I think we've talked about it before, so I think that you and I are on a similar frequency about how we feel about this one.
You'd think that, wouldn't you?
We'll see. Yeah. Well, you never know. But I always enjoy this, and even like as I started watching it last night, I just had I don't want to say I had like a big smile on my face, but metaphorically I felt like I was smiling and just thinking like, oh, this is really...
You were smiling on the inside, yes.
Yeah, it's like, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the ride that I'm about to go on, and then... Because it had been a while, not a while, maybe like a year or two since I've seen it last, and just like, last time I was a little harsh on it, because I think at that point I was just like, oh, this is my least favorite of the franchise. But that's the thing, like with this franchise, even like your least favorite, it's like, that's a good Chucky movie. And I like this better than Child's Play 3. And even still, like, what I was hoping that I would kind of like go into it with a fresh perspective and maybe see it in a different way, or just understand why it is so popular, why people still really love it. But for me, it's one of those movies that's kind of has a lot of nostalgia pushing it for, I mean, myself especially, but the way that I feel about it, and obviously I can't speak for other people, but it's like, I don't think this is a great movie. And it seems that a lot of people who are just like, this is the best movie, this is better than Seed and all that. It's like, are we taking a look at the movie as a whole, or are we just kind of focusing on one aspect or one line of dialogue, like one scene in the movie that's kind of skewing our perception of it? Because I know, like, there's a lot of things where people will be like, oh, this is a great movie because of that. And it's like, well, what about the movie around it? And that's kind of my where I currently stand with Bride of Chucky. Is just like, there's things in this movie, like speaking Letterboxd rating, that I would say, oh, that's 5 stars. But then as you kind of get through the rest of it, it's like, this is not so great. And I kind of land on a 3.5 for this one personally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what my star rating is. Also, like Letterboxd, I find before I can give anything a star rating, I have to go back to all my old star ratings and see, okay, what did I rate this? What did I rate that?
There's a lot of
because
readjusting.
It's like, it can't be below this.
Yeah.
Or it can't be above this. So it's like, that's really, because somebody who doesn't think in those terms typically, like I basically know whether something is 1 star or 5 stars, you know, like
us Letterboxd
like,
people are really fucking weird. We're really weird.
But fun. Like, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and the thing that I like best is like the review that you can give, the explanation, because even like, you know, like you were discussing, like somebody saying like this movie, you know, Bride of Chucky is a 5-star movie to them. I love seeing why, you know, like the explanation, like what is it that stands out about the movie, because you can make an argument or you can just go like, she's fair, snap, snap, you know, like, but
that's all I ever see. It's like most ratings are like, this is the thing, there's no in between. It's like, it's either going to be a 0.5 star or 5 stars, and the explanation, if there is anything, is just basically what you said.
you need to follow some more people.
And that's why I feel like a lot of, like, that's just film criticism nowadays, where like a lot of people are just kind of glomming onto a certain thing. Like I looked up Tenebrae, one of my like favorite movies that we've covered on the podcast, and I searched the reviews based on like the lowest, because I wanted to see like, do people actually hate this? Like what is there, why would they hate something like this? And one of the things was, this movie's terrible. It's so boring. There's like a 3-minute crane shot that has nothing to do with anything that goes over the top of this house. And I'm thinking like, okay, so you're deciding based on one moment in the whole movie that this has lowered the score to basically 0 because of this one thing, and we're not really focusing on the movie around that. And it's that same mentality where it's just like, oh, this is 5 stars based on this one moment. I think it was like the deleted scene, or the alternate scene in Scream 2 of the classroom, where when it was just Timothy Olyphant and Jamie Kennedy doing the back and forth before they got Sarah Michelle Gellar and Joshua Jackson. And there was a line that was taken out of the finished Scream 2 bit where Nikki was actually the one that was like praising Aliens, or just like the line like, stay away from her, you bitch. And Randy says one great line, or like one line does not make a movie great. And I mean, I agree with that so much. Like, that is how I feel about like a movie like Bride of Chucky. It's like, there's so much, there's a lot of great things in this, but that to me does not mean that this is better than, you know, the earlier Child's Play movies, or, you know, what came after it, because of like the iconic introduction of Jennifer Tilly. Because if anything, I'd say that she's only gotten better and better with each performance, to the point where I was even watching this last night and just being like, it doesn't, like, this is obviously very Tiffany, but I don't feel like it's fully like realized as to like who Tiffany is yet. Like, she still needed 25 more years to kind of move into the character to really like to become who Tiffany is now.
Well, I mean, that I'd credit that with Jennifer Tilly and also with Don Mancini actually developing the character, but
yeah,
I feel like the basic like I feel like it's really economically written because of also how little time she actually experiences on screen in her human form. So we spend very little time, not as little time like getting to know Charles Lee Ray like in the first movie, but like this is, we've got 3 movies worth of him in the doll form, and getting to know like, okay, like this is his temper, this is like his sense of humor, this is like what matters to him and what'll actually make him worry and everything like that kind of stuff. But with Tiffany, I felt like one thing that I was really grateful for, like, I mean, we'll just start like the Ronnie Yu of it all. Because I mean, we talked about Freddy versus Jason and about his the many actors on that set kind of like disclosing how little involvement he actually had with them as far as their performances. He seemed to be much more technically minded.
Yeah.
With this one, I feel it a little less, but I think it's also just because of the focal points that I'm drawn to are just more. There's just more to draw on from their performances, like say Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany, Brad Dourif as Chucky. And It's a whole thing. Because even usually the thing that bogs down the movie for me still is Jade and Jesse. We'll just put it out there.
Yeah.
Because like they're. It makes me think about they're America's most uninteresting couple, but
well, that's a trend that we've seen through urban legend. Like the worst part of that was Natalie and Paul. I Know What You Did Last Summers. It was like the Julie and the Ray. It's just a trend of these '90s movies where just you always have to have the most uninteresting couple be the final couple, be the ones who make it out alive, and it's just I don't agree with that. I don't understand why it has to be that way. Right. It was just maybe it's is it sort of maybe it's residual early slasher like 1978 Halloween, where it's sort of Laurie Strode being because you could look at her and just be oh, she's the boring one of the group, she's the virtuous one, because she has better morals or scruples than the two other friends, that's why she's made it. But I would argue that there's a difference between Laurie Strode in 1978 than these characters in these 90s slashers.
Right.
Not all of them, obviously. People like Sidney Prescott are exempt from that, but just where they're we don't really know how to develop these characters or tell this story with this character. That's the only way that the 90s could tell this story. Just in order to survive a horror movie, you have to be boring. And that's why we have our Jades and Jessies and our whatever the fuck their names are.
Well, because that's the thing is also, it's interesting that you're drawing it back to kind of the period, because it was kind of emblematic of the kind of character who would survive from I'd say early 90s to early 2000s, but and then people just started dying. But I also kind of attributed it or wondered if I could attribute it to Don Mancini, because the only other time this has come up in this entire franchise is when we were covering the series, and towards the end of season 2, check it out if you haven't, we were discussing Jake and Devin, and about how we were kind of over their couplehood. It wasn't kind of moving forward, and it wasn't but it wasn't being torn asunder either. It was just kind of it was the kind of the least compelling storyline of a season otherwise replete with batshit, kind of action.
Yeah.
And so, and it didn't even have a stabilizing effect, because they weren't stable. They were just kind of arguing, but not full out fighting and saying, that's it, it's over. It's okay, pick a lane. But so I wondered if Don Mancini, kind of in a similar way, it's always been attributed to Joss Whedon that if you like a couple in anything that he creates, don't get used to it, because one of them's gonna die or get picked out. Love cannot last in a Joss Whedon project. And it makes me wonder if with Don Mancini, if you have a kind of central romantic interest dynamic between two characters, well, that don't look for that to be too interesting. And of course I'm saying this is Chucky season 3 is about to unfold, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yes, the first episode has already aired. By the time this is released, we'll have 2 episodes. But I see this. It's very much like the Scream version of Chucky, if you can have a Scream version of Chucky, because that's what the late 90s were mostly about. It's just kind of bringing back some of these horror properties, or just making an idea and just infusing Scream into it, the way that I know this was years later, but Cursed was Scream but with werewolves, but Halloween H2O was Scream but with Michael Myers, and here it's just Scream with Chucky, and the Jade and Jesse of it all was to more so meet that quota of the teen characters. She's a teenager. They basically say so, because John Ritter says until you're an adult.
18.
Yeah.
Once you're 18, you can go to hell for all I care. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was such a great line too. With him, I would assume he's probably 21 or something. That's the impression. Older guy living in a trailer park, dating a high school girl. Yeah, that was never really explored. They were just there, which I don't mind. I didn't need to learn any more about who they were. But That's the impression I got. It's just like it was sort of this idea that, okay, we're gonna have this couple because that's what the movies need nowadays, is like a teen cast. They're gonna hook up and whatever the situation here is. And yeah, I'll agree. Like Don Mancini, I think that he's at his strongest when he's writing characters that are, come together in a more natural way, like Andy and Kyle, and just sort of like their situation and how that bonds them. And even Karen and Andy in the first movie. And I would even say, even though this wasn't developed well, like there was definitely potential for it, but the De Silva and what was his name?
Forget about them.
What was his name? The guy with the glasses, the nerdy guy, and Andy, like that sort of like threesome there. Just like they seem to be like
right.
these kind of like outcasts in this military school. That it would have been fun to watch that dynamic of those three team up. And I think that, yeah, I'll agree. Like maybe Don Mancini just doesn't know to write couples in an intriguing way. But again, like we don't see couples in this franchise anymore. Like so it might have been a studio thing where they were just pushing him to like, okay, well, we need a main couple opposite of Chucky and Tiffany in this movie, because like Seed, we don't have like teen characters or young adult characters. We don't have that in Curse. We don't have that in Cult. Like these movies go off in so many different directions that this is really the only time that it was kind of sticking to a pattern of what was hot in horror at the time. And then we didn't really get teen characters again. I mean, even though I wouldn't really classify them as teens, like you said, with like the Jake and Devin Evans and Lexi, because now they're more like teenagers, but we've actually grown with them over like the last two seasons. So it's different than just being introduced to these nobodies who we're supposed to form this attachment to throughout the movie.
Yeah, It's interesting because also one thing that I do find compelling about the way Don Mancini structured this script was, usually in comedy, if you have a central couple and then kind of like another couple, a side couple, a character actor couple, if you will, they're the ones who are in the background, who get to be kind of like either more wry, more comedic, more and maybe even kind of like see the pitfalls that are coming with the central couple. And the roles are reversed here because it's called Bride of Chucky. So basically Tiffany and Chucky are it. They're both basically kind of like identified in the title. And because they literally are sitting there commentating to each other on the relationship as it navigates all of these pitfalls and chuckling even. They were my saving grace this time. In the past, I think I've been so enthralled by Jennifer Tilly's performance as Jennifer Tilly. Yeah. I mean, like in her body, like as Tiffany Valentine, like on screen. I always wanted more. I always wished they could have let her be in the movie a little bit longer. Now I kind of like structurally understand, like, well, Chucky wouldn't have let her get away with imprisoning him for very long, and we wouldn't have wanted
unless it was like a whatever happened to Baby Jane situation.
I mean, well, we've got our own version of that unearths, like, again in the series, but but I mean, Tiffany's basically a kidnapper, but she kidnaps because she loves, and she imprisons because that way that's the only way to keep you from running away. Exactly. But so that seed's planted too. But I like the fact that like the couple that we're meant to identify with are the couple that is usually kind of like sidelined and not spent as much time on, and I feel like we get to watch them be these character actor type, characters on the outside, but we also get to watch them kind of take center screen, like when he proposes and when they consummate their love, and even when like in the standoff, like I am so much more interested. There's so much more going on between the two of them than there is between Jade and Jesse. Jade and Jesse is just kind of like, I love you and you deserve everything. You might be a murderer. Uh-oh. And then, and then, oh shit, they're the murderers. I love you. Like that's basically all the levels that they reach.
Thank God that this movie is short. Just in terms of its runtime, because by the time we get to that, I'm just like, okay, let's wrap it up. But you mentioned the Ronnie Yu of it all, and I think that I mean, I don't know anything about I didn't listen to any commentary with him. I don't really know. I don't even think I've ever seen like an interview with him or anything. But I would think that, you know, the reason that maybe things were a little different here is because Freddy versus Jason was much more of a studio movie than this was. And I would imagine just because of Don Mancini's ownership of the franchise and the characters, that he was probably working through it the entire way. Whereas like the writers on Freddy versus Jason, like they just wrote the script and turned it over, and they didn't really have much involvement after that from what I understand. So I think that it was more so, you know, Ronnie Yu was also newer to North American cinema at that time. So he was probably, you know, had Don Mancini there to kind of like guide the movie a little bit in a way to meet that vision. Whereas like Freddy versus Jason, I could see him just being like, I'm contracted to do this. I'm making money. Nobody's here to say anything otherwise. Where, you know, if you when you have someone like Jennifer Tilly, and I don't even know how she even first came involved, or where like the concept of Tiffany came from within like Don Mancini, or if they were friends beforehand and had these conversations and been like, I want to take the Child's Play franchise into a new direction. I really want to have you come on board as a character. Like, I don't know if they had a friendship beforehand, but I wouldn't doubt it. I could see something like that. And in that case, you know, maybe that was Don Mancini was sort of like the anchor on that set who was directing at least, you know, certain cast members outside of whatever Ronnie Yu was doing, if he's more technical and not really cast oriented.
I think Don Mancini certainly had an eye for what was working on set and what wasn't, in terms of like what does the franchise need to be in order to continue on as a franchise? Even the fact that like the concept Bride of Chucky, you mentioned earlier about like seeing the posters and everything like that. I remember the ad campaign for it, and even though I didn't go see it in the theaters at that time, I do remember thinking, good for them. Because by Child's Play 3, I remember the ads for that, it felt kind of played out. It felt like they were, I mean, you'd have to go see the movies to, you know, judge for yourself whether they were churning out the same thing over and over again, but it felt like a pretty basic concept that you weren't going to. I was actually surprised there was another Chucky movie coming out, but the fact that they were leaning into what felt just in its very nature, because it's called Bride of Chucky, it felt like they were leaning into satire and self-referential humor, but not the same formula that every other studio seemed to be going about. Like, okay, so we need a cast of young people and we need them all standing shoulder to shoulder, you know, like kind of flanking one another, and you know, and some kind of like looming evil over them. That's what we're gonna do. No, this was like, again, like it was almost like you've got your core couple, and then you what you would assume it's the core couple with the two young kids, but you've got like this vaudeville act happening on the sidelines, and every now and then the camera shifts. It starts off like basically being about like the vaudevillians, and then it keeps shifting back to them. They were my saving grace in this screening, because usually, I don't know, I think at a certain point I got used to the puppetry instead of just kind of like appreciating, like, that is so many levels of performance. It's the vocal performances from Brad Dourif and from Jennifer Tilly, but it's also the performances that's being executed by the team who are working with the cabled puppets, you know? And I really delighted in seeing the way emotions would manifest in their face, like seeing, especially Tiffany. Like, I remember thinking this was kind of like the weakest Tiffany performance for a long time, looking back, you know, like thinking about how many more gizmos they allowed to be, because this was like the least kind of like technologically advanced they allowed her to be. Chucky was continually pushing the envelope, but she was not, you know, a name yet, so there was very kind of little care. It was just kind of like, well, let's do what we can to execute a performance so, you know, she can look like something's going on. But everything from just like the way, especially in more passive moments where performance really shines when you're just reacting to things. When Chucky leaves the van to go get rid of the cop, what's his name, the fucker, Norton.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I know you're.
Yeah, it's Norton. Yeah, and you know, like he gives the guy the finger, and the guy goes, "Rude fucking doll," and all that. But while she's watching the whole thing from the van window, and there's one moment where she's just kind of waiting and just kind of like, nice. You know, like you can see like literally like the wheels of thought turning in her head, and then when he finally like, you know, ignites, you know, the explosion and everything like that, and there's this reaction shot from her where she's got like this incredible evil grin on her. It's like ha 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 ha, ha with her raised eyebrows and her kind of wicked grin. I was really like turning to them in a way that I haven't done in a long time, since probably like maybe my first screening of this movie, which allowed me to kind of like rediscover, because I love puppet shows and did as a kid. Like, you know, I'm a big old Muppet fan, and I'm watching it as though I'm watching something like Labyrinth now, really appreciating the artistry behind like that team. And oh my god, it it makes it a lot easier to ride through this movie. So I was grateful for that this particular time.
We've gotten like really ahead of ourselves here, but I do want to you know, do a little housekeeping stuff here. Housekeeping. That was one of the scenes that was skipped over too.
No!
Yeah, I was so upset. I could have just put on the Blu-ray, but yeah. Anyway, I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters of mine and the podcast. So thank you to Ryan Kwan, Michael Diamond, Niche, and Jay Gallotello. Thank you so much. We appreciate your support. If you do, I thought you said fuck 'em.
No, welcome!
Fuck 'em!
No, dear God. What kind of monster do you think I am?
Sometimes I question. But if
I know.
If you want to fucking come on to the support train, we would greatly appreciate anything you have to offer. You can head over to my Patreon account under Zack Cherry. Every tier gets you early access to all of our episodes. If you're supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier, you get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which comes out every month. That will be next week's episode, and we are ranking the slasher killers. Which I'm not just the you know, the Chuckies and the Michaels. Like, we're going in depth with. We've made a list.
What's the number? What number have we arrived at so far?
I didn't count, but it's not as many as the Final Girls.
No,
because there's not as many slasher killers as there are Final Girls.
Yeah,
but there will be a lot. So you can check out the preview. That will be next week, and then we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. But you'll be able to get the whole episode on the Freddy Krueger tier. So thank you again to everyone supporting and all the new supporters. And also thank you to Boy Cried Wolf for being our podcast editor. Yay! Week in, week out. All right. I'll just get into the whole Jade and Jesse of it all, because...
Okay.
This I don't even mind them like in the first half of the movie, because I actually I think the editing is really well, how it just sort of like cuts back and forth, because there's still like mystery to their storyline at the start of it. We don't really know what they're about. You obviously have the incredibly talented John Ritter, who's sort of like, even, you know, with the other two, like he's making that interesting, just being there, of just being this like secondary antagonist in the story, who we obviously are meant to hate him, but he's so good. And he was supposed to be, we talked about this, maybe we did, in the last Child's Play movie, he was going to be in the opening scene until they rewrote everything. It was like him and his son, who went on to play what's his face in Freddy vs. Jason. And it just never panned out. Like, I think it was like the day before, they're just like, we're doing something else, and then they did the opening with the toy company guy. So obviously Don Mancini like probably must have been friends with him and just like, oh, I'm gonna get you back at some point. Just like, play this character in in Bride of Chucky. So I'm glad that, I think that whatever he would have been in that movie would have been like some quick little cameo, whereas here at least he actually gets to play a role. So I mean, even in these parts of the movie where we're first being introduced to Jesse, Jade, and is it Warren? The uncle.
Oh, Warren
uncle,
Kincaid.
Uncle.
You mean the Uncle Warren Kincaid.
And then the friend, was it David?
David, yes.
Yeah, David, the gay friend.
The
gay
one.
The gay one. I was still like interested in that because it was just like everything about the opening, even though there wasn't really like a lot of dialogue, like you said, it was just like kill and it's like curiosity, kill the cat. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
All of that is so like that might be one of my favorite openings of like any of the Child's Play movies. And just like that, whatever that building is in, like that, it looks like a church or something. Of just like the lighting in the background. It's just like a warehouse or something. I don't know. Like everything about the opening is just like working for me on every level that it possibly could of a horror movie. And like right down to even like the meta-ness of like the evidence locker of just like the Michael Myers mask and the like Jason mask and Freddy claw and all that. Like it's just like it's so out there, but it's just like it's really putting me in this mood, and that's why I had this metaphorical smile on my face because just like like we're in for a really good time. And then we get the kill of Bailey or whatever his name is, who was also, as I mentioned in the urban legend, it was Brenda's fiance. Maybe that's like we can headcanon because isn't in the next movie where she calls his widow to apologize. She was actually talking to Brenda,
Bailey, the wife of a widow of Robert Bailey. Yeah. He comes back. Well, his name does.
No, but I all of that going into the Rob Zombie of it all, and just like that over top of her stitching it together in her trailer, and then just sort of like leaning back and just like taking it all in, like it's
beautiful.
Everything about that, like just the way that this is edited, and then at that point it moves into the scene with Jade and Jesse, and I'm fine because I've been satiated by everything. Like that's such great storytelling of the opening because we know everything we have to know at this point, and now the movie is happening. We're being introduced to the characters, and it's done so well. And there is like little bits of misdirection because it's like we don't know about Jesse at that point, and the situation of like the Jade and her uncle and all that. So it's like it's still interesting because it's like it's unfolding as the movie goes on, and then we cut back to Tiffany in the trailer, and Alexis Arquette shows up, and everything is still just like this is so good. Like the opening of this movie, right up to like the first act, is flawless. That I don't mind any of like these characters yet because they haven't annoyed me yet. But it's not until it's not until like after Tiffany becomes the doll. And like we discussed this because I always prefer Jennifer Tilly playing Tiffany in Jennifer Tilly's body, or just like in human form, we'll say, because you get so much more nuance out of her performance than you would in a doll form. And you could argue the same thing for Brad Dourif as Chucky, but the thing is like it's Chucky, that's like the novelty of the movie. Whereas with Jennifer Tilly, like there's just something so bizarre and almost perverse about like this grown woman who's just like has this prisoner of a doll that I absolutely love. But regardless of the fact that she's transferred into the body of the doll, because you spoke about that, and I love all that, and it makes sense, and it should have happened. Like there's no way that this movie would be what it is, or even this franchise would be what it is if Tiffany wasn't in a doll form. But it's at that point when they're like, how are we going to get to Hackensack, New Jersey, to get the heart of Damballa? Yeah. And it's just like, this is what we're going to do. And it's just, we're going on this cross country thing, or not even cross state.
Right.
of the couple driving them there. And at that point, the movie just becomes solely about them. Like it's literally like at that scene when it's like, oh, I'm getting $1,000. We can start a life over. I'm like, okay, like that's not gonna last long. And of course, you do get the Tiffany and the Chucky of like when he's just like, I give them 6 months or 3 months or what is it, 6 months, 3 if she gets fat.
6 months, 3 if she gains weight.
Yeah. Like those are fun moments, but I think it's like once they get to that supermarket, whatever the restaurant, gas station, wherever they kill the cop at with the where all those people are around. It's like some fast food joint or convenience store. I don't know what it is. That's
perceived like a drive-in situation too. Like all the cars are parked. I mean, I guess it's just a parking lot, but it always looked like the cars are all parked facing something. Which cinematically just tells me, oh, they're at a drive-in movie. But we never see the movie, so I'm just. Yeah, it's not established all that effectively.
Yeah, but it's like once that happens, and it's just like I already don't know enough about these characters or care about their elopement. But then it's kind of leads into this like what you said. It's just like, did you kill them or did you? And just it's just something that's like not very earned throughout the story, and it completely takes anything away from the characters that we are following, like the dynamic that has been fun at this point, because it's so unnecessary. And I think that it's unnecessary for several reasons, mostly because we as an audience know what the situation is. It's not like earlier on where we were just meeting them and we didn't know what was going on with Jesse and Jade in the story. But now we're fully aware of what position or what roles they're playing in the story. Like they're basically the mules to take Chucky and Tiffany, the unknowing mules, to cart them across the state. And they're completely oblivious to everything that's going on that we know about. And that would be all well and good if like maybe they did have more fun with it. Like if Chucky and Tiffany were like, let's gaslight these, like, just to get a rise out of them. And, just to actually do something that wasn't like incidental, because that's what I felt like, when they were laughing and like, ha ha ha, everything worked out because of these two bozos. It just felt like, oh, they're just kind of there. It wasn't like there was no intent behind it. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, yeah, or less malicious, I suppose. But I don't know. There's also like something kind of charming to me about the fact that they, like, oh wow, we weren't even trying to like fuck up their relationship, and now they're fighting. This is really funny. Like, I don't know. There's something, because Chucky and Tiffany are the kind of couple that, like, if they're not fighting, then they're probably laughing with each other over the pain of others.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Celebrating the pain of others. So I like seeing all of that go on. And, like I said, it bothered me the least this particular sitting. I don't know if that's going to be, like, the rule from now on. But, I even found myself noticing little things between Jesse and Jade that I didn't really... either I hadn't noticed them or I'd forgotten about them before. Something as simple as... before the sequence that we were discussing at the supermarket / drive-in, have you, whatever it is, where Norton gets it. Right before that, the two of them are getting back into the van, and it's just this shot. It's like an unnecessary shot of Jade getting into the passenger seat first, and she reaches over and unlocks the driver's side door for Jesse. And I'm just kind of like, I think that's the most decent thing she does in the entire movie that I've seen. It reminded me of a movie also from the 90s called A Bronx Tale, where there's this young man and he's learning about life and everything like that. And he is, is going on a date with his first girl and everything like that. And he's told by this paternal figure of his, this gangster, all right, I want you to let her into the car like a gentleman, open the door and shut the door for her. And I want you to walk around the back of the car and keep an eye on her, because if she reaches over and unlocks the door for you, she's a keeper. And if not, she is a fucking selfish bitch. And he's letting her in the car on the date, and he walks around the back and he sees her reach over in slow-mo and unlock the door for him and does a little yes, like behind the car. I don't know, it just made me think about that moment. I was kind of like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, maybe Jade isn't as bad as I remembered her. But then, the very next scene, she's assaulting an officer with her Karen-ness and her white privilege. And, I'm just like, oh, God. I don't care how incensed you get over, like, a cop being a jerk, to you and everything like that, to just kind of like, he's just standing there laughing, and then you just go, you bastard! and then you start beating him with your fists with no plan. Like, she's not even trying to take him down. Like, again, if she were strategic about it, I might be able to be kind of like, okay, cool, you know, like, you know, you don't let him infringe on your rights and everything like that. But the fact that she's just kind of like, ah, you know, just like throwing a tantrum, basically. It's like, this will not help your situation. Control your fucking situation, lady.
Yeah.
I don't know. So she was right back to being Jade for me after that. Kind of like the least sympathetic character. And she's in a really sympathetic situation. Like, she's essentially like imprisoned herself by her, is it her uncle? I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's
if
her
she
uncle.
ever calls him Uncle Warren. She just kind of calls him Warren over and over again.
Her uncle, yeah.
He's her guardian. That's the
Yeah.
word they use, but I don't remember ever hearing any kind of like blood ties.
It's Halloween Ends all over again. Like, what's his face to Corey? Was it his father or his stepfather or his uncle? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing uncle far removed who didn't like her parents anyway. But
yeah.
but
I mean, the thing. Well, it's Katherine Heigl, and I mean, she's gone on record to say that she hates these movies, and I mean, the thing is, you know, I can see it's not a very well written role, so I can understand that. I know that in her career she's spoken out about getting not the best material written for her. And I don't know. I don't have anything bad to say about her. I did watch an interview. I think it was like more recent, where it was like the topic came up of just like that she's so hated or something like that, and she just said like, do you think that you're a difficult person, or just like, because she had this reputation, and she's just like, you know what, like at first like it did kind of weigh heavily on me, and I you know had to question myself, am I a difficult person? And I think she went through like a lot of therapy for that, and then she's just like, but you know what? I realized that no, I'm not. Like, it's not any different than like any other situation. So I mean, I do feel badly for her, and just like the way that, you know, certain things turned out. But you know, she was at the top of her career at a point there. Like, she was like a lead. Like, she had was getting roles where she was, you know, the star of these movies, and then it kind of this reputation that, you know, kind of came out of speaking up for certain things.
I mean, also punching down to a certain extent, because like she said, I remember the comment, and we won't linger on this, but I just remember at the time the comment was she had been nominated for Grey's Anatomy for a particular season, and the statement she made, which was completely unprovoked, just said, or I mean unprovoked in the interview, she just kind of commented, I don't think I really deserved a nomination because the writing for my character this season wasn't really up to par. And it's like, wow, okay, so way to praise yourself, and you know, like basically kind of like denigrate the people who are like creating material for you to do like week after week after week, as opposed to just saying, great, a nomination, thanks, you know, like that. So I mean, I wouldn't call it necessarily speaking out, but I was doing background at the time. I got to do background that season after she made the comment, and I remember everybody seemed very unhappy, especially her. Every opportunity she got, she was taking a smoke break and talking to no one, and I was like, what is going on here? But anyway, that's the only encounter I have with Katherine Heigl. I mean, I don't think she's untalented as an actress. I've seen her give performances where I'm just kind of like, cool. And I really hope at some point, maybe on this pod, if we can, because I've never seen it before, but her thriller where she's like the crazy bitch, and who's she going up against? It's either, she didn't do the Beyonce one, that was Ollie Larder, but it was like that type of like movie where like, you know, like blonde-haired white woman comes in and ruins it for everyone. She did, I think it was Rosario Dawson. Was it her and Rosario Dawson where it's like she's got children with her ex, and Rosario Dawson is the new woman, and she's all about like making their lives, you know, hell or something. I don't even know what it's called, but she did one of those. One of those like subgenre of thriller. I'd never that was around in like the early 2010s, you know? Yeah. I would
that was very popular back then. Yeah. Sort of like the single white female, or the All About Eves.
Right.
Like
it was like the thriller, the thriller of the new millennium. It was like the kitschy thriller of the new millennium.
Fatal Attractions. Yeah.
And
because that's the thing, like, I don't, it's another case where I don't actually mind Jesse. I think that he's fine on his own. I love the scene where he's obviously washing the van shirtless. Like that will like live on as like like a gay awakening moment. In my life, I tried to look him up on Instagram because he's on there. But it's a private account now, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna to no. Him. But like he's fine, but it's just one of those cases where it's just like it's not necessarily her, but it's just like them together that just like it just drags both of them down, and it's very similar to what you were talking about of Jake and Devin in season 2. Chucky, I'd say probably worse here. Just because they're not as developed, whereas I feel like we still have like we still we want the best for
at least I
Jake
rooted for that couple. These
Devin,
two, Jesse and Jade, I never rooted for them.
That's just like I don't care what's going on with them. So I mean, it is what it is at this point, and with her, I definitely feel like because she's sort of like she's headlining this movie under Jennifer Tilly. Like, what did Jennifer Tilly's name comes up first, but then and then Katherine Heigl, Bride of Chucky, or was like her name first after the movie? Because at the time, Katherine Heigl, I believe, was popular because of a show called Roswell, which I'd never seen, but that would have been her. Yeah, that would have been like her thing of just like how she was in this movie, and I don't know what he did. Nick Stabile. How would you say?
I haven't seen him in anything other than this, to my knowledge.
He's got credits, but I've just like it's just stuff that I've never heard of or never seen. And he hasn't done anything in the past 8 years or so. But it's and then you do have like the cameos from like the Kathy and John Ritter, which is not as much a cameo. So just like it was an interesting cast for sure, but I don't know. It's just like that's a thing. You focus so much on like these characters because it was the Scream thing of just like, well, we were interested in the teen characters, that it's just like all this other talent is going to waste.
Well, I even developed a question, like a theory now. I'm just like, is Jade supposed to be kind of intolerable? Because I was watching her exchange while she's kind of like sitting out there holding herself, looking all weepy with David while she's waiting for, I guess she's waiting for Jesse to show up, or she's not, and he shows up and it's a great surprise. Like that doesn't really have a lot of context, but she's just kind of like, she's just like, remember Brad Barker? And he's just kind of like, oof, yeah. And she's just like, you were in love with him, weren't you? And he's like, yeah, I was. Really like, you can see the clouds kind of like gather, around his head, like, yeah, that was rough. And then she just kind of says, oh, what happened? And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be best friends? Wouldn't you already know what happened with a guy that he was in love with? Or maybe he wasn't out yet, and maybe like, I mean, that's a whole storyline. I'm like, I just want to know about like what happened with David and the synthesis of like his being out and Jade knowing. Like, I have nothing but questions about that. If it had been a series earlier, maybe we would have gotten some of those questions answered. But it also made me wonder, or is Jade just like so self-involved and such a bad friend that she never asks about David, and it's always because he's largely kind of sidelined as well. He's kind of like the bastion of their relationship, like almost the grand marshal of the Jade. He's
basically just there to serve them. He's there. He swoops in when he's like, oh, like after hearing from both of you, everything's fine. Yeah. It's Warren. He like that's his sole purpose. It's just like to be the gay bestie, because that's in the late 90s, that's the only reason that you would have a gay best friend, which is like the Matt Fielding syndrome on Melrose Place, is that you're just there to hype other people up. And that's all you have to do.
Rupert Everett in My Best Friend's Wedding just on the phone going, Jules, what's wrong with you? Yeah. But because he even says, like, in that moment where he catches up with them, is like, I know you both better than anyone. And I'm like, But did they know you? Did they
Yeah.
know anything about you, or do they just consistently call you with like their problems and expect you, and the only way they can understand, whether you've actually gone through something is if they are going through something comparable, and that just made me think like that's an interesting footnote in gay history there, cinematic, gay history, like the roles that we played in and we're expected to play in cinema for the most part.
And I mean, like,
cool.
I appreciate so much that like how far we've come in this franchise. I mean, even like the next movie of just how progressive it is with gender roles, but just like, but now that like Don Mancini, like I'm sure that maybe there is a version of Bride of Chucky where Don Mancini had Jesse and Jade as a like a gay couple, but the studio was just like, absolutely not. You can have a gay best friend or whatever. Right. Or maybe he just understood that and was like, I'm not even going to try.
I think it's the latter, yeah.
And then you that's why you have a character like David. And then like at this point now, like arguably like the third wheel is the Lexi character. And she's, just as interesting, and complex as anyone else on that show. That it just shows that like you don't have to like fill a quota or check a box to have like the gay characters, or just like making sure that we're covering all the different colors of the rainbow or colors of skin. Like it's about writing interesting characters. And I mean,
being open-minded during casting, like people used to call it colorblind casting, but the term now that people use is color-conscious casting, knowing that like we can't just throw anyone into the mix and go kind of like, yeah, that would happen to them. It's like, no, well, let's be conscious of it. Like if this were to happen to someone of this particular lineage or race or what have you, religion, or sexual orientation, whatever, like would this be likely? Would this be plausible? I like that even those questions are getting asked today, and it feels that's one case where I feel like the characters, the younger characters of Bride of Chucky are largely more simplistic. But it makes me happy that it only enhances the interest from my part as an audience member in the quote unquote villains of the piece. Like it kind of makes them sympathetic in a way akin to, I love that it's called Bride of Chucky, akin to Bride of Frankenstein, because Frankenstein was kind of cinema's first sympathetic monster.
Yeah.
And certainly in the talkie era, because not a lot of people felt a lot of sympathy for Dracula. But I love that the way we achieve sympathy for monsters in the 90s is to put them in a dysfunctional relationship with each other and make it more interesting than, the couple that everything would run smoothly in theory if only they could just be free to love, like, I mean, that's a played out storyline as well. And I think it's, maybe it is intentionally kind of like set to a more bland setting just so we're continually looking to the puppets, to the dolls.
Yeah, like you don't want to pull focus from them.
Yeah.
But I always wonder like whatever became of Jesse and Jade. Like after they walk off, like did they last? Are they still together?
6 months. They lasted 6 months.
6 months. Exactly. Not a day more, not a day less.
It was like their 6-month anniversary, and he's just kind of like, well, I deserve better. And she's like, me too. And they parted ways. Yeah. Or maybe after that kind of like an experience, maybe it either bonded them for life and they're still together, or that was it. Like, it's just kind of like, you know what, we can't bounce back.
Well, I mean,
this. I don't trust you.
Who knows? Maybe like with the way that Chucky as a series is structured, we're getting all of these like past characters coming back, there's been rumors of De Silva coming back at some point. So it's just like, who knows? Maybe we'll get them. Like there was a reference to, I can't remember which movie it was, but just Chucky listing off all the families that he's fucked with over the years, and he mentions the Kincaids. So it's just like, they're still in the Chucky consciousness. So,
and I like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against ever seeing them. I mean, I doubt that Katherine Heigl would ever want to take part in something like this, But
Well,
I
then
would,
just
I
bring
would,
back
I would,
Jesse.
I would at least be interested to hear about that. Just like whatever happened to them. Just
Yeah.
like they could even just say in passing. But yeah, it would be great to see him come back.
Yeah.
Even even if it was like independent of her. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, with her, I mean, even like her introduction into the movie, like it was very antagonistic. Like it was provoked because like she's walking down the stairs. And she's like, "I'm right here, Warren. You don't have to yell."
Right. And she doesn't uncross her arms for the whole movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I feel like that's her default position, is just arms crossed and pouting. That's how I always imagine Jade. This has become like the Let's Bash Jade podcast. But I'm glad we're getting this out. We're clearing a blockage, obviously.
Yeah.
I also, in terms of just like the other couple in this movie, Chucky and Tiff, they're, because we can really discuss, like go in depth about like what we love about Jennifer Tilly's performance and everything like that. I love the way you described everything in the opening sequence. I concur 100%. The next thing that I kind of like really responded to as far as she's concerned, and this goes beyond her performance, but just like how in on the joke everybody seemed, in like from the production design to the bleached hair and costuming and makeup and everything, like everything about Tiffany is just it just seems to fit so incredibly perfectly that they're creating this like girlfriend living in her bullet trailer, but she's kind of like inhabited, like she has definitely inhabited the space. Like I don't remember how often, do you remember if the doll collection ever comes up again? Like if she starts, I can't remember if like in the room where she was like keeping Nika or anything like that, if she had like a bevy of dolls. I don't remember. I feel like it would
She
be,
definitely
but
had
I don't remember if I'm just imagining
dolls
it.
there. But what I was thinking when I saw the trailer was just like, oh, how far you've come. Because it's like now you're living in the Jennifer Tilly mansion, which you set fire to. But it's just like that's what's great about, like, Tiffany is an opportunist, or at least just
Absolutely.
like she'll look for the opportunity in any situation, and it's just like she's someone that like it's so lived in her performance that you can see like this is a character who's like really had to get by on life through her wits and her feminine wiles and
because I love that. I love that she even, to speak to her feminine wiles, here she's got this guy, Damien, or otherwise known as Howard Fitzwater. But she's got Damien coming over, who is essentially like, on the face of it, we'd probably think like, oh, okay, this is like some casual sex situation. But then Damien says to her, don't you think you've kept me waiting long enough? And she says, without even thinking, no, with a sneer. You know,
doesn't
and
she
I love
say,
that.
huh?
I love the fact that
now.
Yeah, right. Now,
actually,
and,
one of my
like,
favorite lines is when she's clearly like, she obviously knows that the photo is a fake, but he just like took the Polaroid of himself, and she's like, oh, did you really get him into it? And then she's like, wait a minute, and then, when she's like, you never really actually killed anybody, did you?
Right.
Did you, you pathetic worm?
Yeah. Or even just like the way she dances on top of it prior to that, just like, Damien, this nail polish looks awfully familiar. She is so like I can't get enough of it.
But
also,
that's where I love her at her
meets
most. Like
halfway,
she's just doing the best work in the first act of this movie, which again like just speaks to sort of like I love puppet doll Tiffany, but it's just like you lose so much with her
because we've already spent so much time with her inhabiting the screen as in the Jennifer Tilly body, even though playing Tiffany Valentine. Yeah, I understand completely. But and then there were other things. I'm just kind of like, I want to go back and like watch the series and just go, because we constantly credit this for being like one of the most consistent franchises in horror, especially considering how long it's been, even though there were like little retcons here and there. Like obviously Chucky by this film certainly no longer has to inhabit the body of the first person who sees him human, because he never would have killed Damien then, because he would have had to inhabit that body. And he certainly wouldn't have pulled the lip ring out. I still wince at that. I don't know. It's just accessible, and I've never had a lip ring, but I'm just like, ow, ooh, and the blood looks good. But Tiffany says while she's doing that little seduction dance for the both of them, we lived together for years, and I'm like, what year did they meet again in the series? Like, I just want to go back and like look at the timeline and see if everything checks out, and then if it doesn't, I can just tell myself in my head canon, oh, she's just, telling, we lived together for years. It's an epic tale of Charles Lee Ray and Tiffany Valentine. I mean, what is she doing in that moment? Is she telling the truth, or is she embellishing for the sake of drama?
The thing with Tiffany is that she is all over the place. Like, she changes her mind on things so much, and from what I remember in the series, the way that it was shown in the flashback is that she was actually the one who called the police. That then led to the scene of the opening movie. So she's responsible for tipping them off. But then in this movie, she said when she brings up the ring, she's just like, "That night you died, I found the ring." So I can just see in my headcanon for Tiffany, now that she did that because she was sort of like, oh, I'll teach him a lesson. And then after she found out about that, she probably found the ring and was just like, oh, what have I done? And then like probably lived with that guilt for however long. And then like that's why she brought back, she's been holding this torch for him or carrying this torch for him all this time, probably because of guilt. Because of that. And it just makes her so much more interesting. And then that would also explain that once he sort of unleashes that revelation of just like, that wasn't an engagement ring. That was I just took that off Vivian Van Pelt. And for her to like have that reaction to it that she did, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. I can see
absolutely.
It. So I got that. I love all of that. Too. And I love that. Yeah. It's so easy to kind of reel her back in, but it's just as easy to do something that will make her do something to fuck with you. Gosh, what is Tiffany's zodiac sign?
I don't know. I knew that was going to come up at some point. And actually, did you notice that on Charles Lee Ray's tombstone, it only has his death date, not his birth date? When they go over when they go to like exhume the body and they're interrupting like the unburying of him and everything like that to get the heart of Damballa, it only has the death date. It says his name and it says died and it has the date. It does not have the date of his birth. At least not in this movie. Maybe if we revisit his grave in any other incarnations, maybe we get that. But
it says on Child's Play Wiki that his birth date is May 1st, 1958.
Okay, so, I don't know if that had been decided upon yet by bride time, obviously. Again, and that just kind of speaks, that feels like a Ronnie Yu decision, and I don't mean that as like to degrade him or to diminish him in anything. I think it's just so broad and cartoony, and I think a lot of that kind of like, those kind of like graphic novel, sarcastic, feel of the air, like even the camera shots he shoots. I mean, I will say, visual interest is created throughout this entire movie for me. I think the Ronnie Yu token, at least as far as his American movies are concerned, the token blue base works better here than in Freddy vs. Jason, even though I like it in Freddy vs. Jason, but it largely feels like it's a new flavor for both of those characters, whereas with Bride of Chucky, because Tiffany is so new, it's almost like she brings this blue hue to everything. I mean, it really completely dominates, the walls of her trailer. And then every situation we find ourselves, even the lighting, like when she's picking up the Chucky doll, those aren't shafts of white light coming through, they're shafts of, like blue light coming through. So I just love, I don't know, there's something about an indigo blue that I really appreciate and think works really, really well in this movie. In terms of the character and where she goes after this, I just love the fact that, again, it's established really early on. As he no sooner comes back than he's complimenting her and putting her down simultaneously. He tells her just like, you look great, Tiff. And she's just like, thanks. And he's just like, no, I gotta be honest. I always thought you were gonna let yourself go. And it's like, fuck! Like, you can even see her face like, oh, it really is Chucky.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy to have him back, so I probably shouldn't say anything. And it's all about like the line, like dancing up to the line. How far are you two going to kind of like do this push me, pull you of this kind of shoving in the back seat of the car to each other before one of you finally breaks and barks at the other, and now we're in a fight. They're always in a state of kind of like perpetual bickering or on the cusp of bickering. And unless it's just a flood of passionate love, which they don't do anything halfway, which I kind of and because then also just like when she's telling him the story about the ring, another one of my favorite shots in the entire movie is just that I forget what you call it, but like that divided shot, like that, like it's two lenses in the same shot, so you can see Chucky in focus in the background and her face in focus in the foreground as he's laughing at her, which is like, you mean you weren't gonna ask me to marry you? And he just starts laughing at her, and that's when she says to herself, like, you haven't changed, you'll never change. What the hell was I thinking? And I'm like, oh my god, I know these characters so well, like right off the bat. Like, it's an abusive relationship emotionally, and she, I don't know, something about even her name, like the fact that her last name is Valentine tells me, and even the heart tattoo, everything, every little quality that they plug into this character only enriches the experience and tells me, like, okay, so this is a character whose heart is exposed. This is a character who will always continually want to believe the best in someone, and will be shattered every single time she's reminded, like, oh, that's not the truth. But for some reason, because it's Chucky, well, I mean, I guess killing him doesn't do any good because she's the one who brought him back, in this particular interim. Yeah. And so, I mean, this love, I love that it's almost like a love of the ages, that they're eternally doomed to be killing each other and then bringing each other back. Or if they're brought back together, all of a sudden they're not fighting. They're just kind of like, wow, look, we came back. How did it happen this time?
Yeah.
And I find that vastly entertaining with these characters.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that, at the risk of rewriting the movie or just saying what would have worked better if they just they had leaned into that. Like Jesse and Jade didn't even need to be characters in this movie, because really the only purpose that they serve is to facilitate the travel. That what would have been interesting is just like, let's just spend the entire. This could have been a road trip movie for Chucky and Tiffany, just finding different ways to just get to where they needed to get to. And we didn't
different couples that they're thinking.
No, but we didn't.
Might inhabit.
Maybe, but I feel like we didn't even need like a protagonist or like a final boy or girl or couple. Like, it's just like, that's the thing. Like, you don't have to sympathize with like I said this before. You don't have to sympathize with the characters. You just have to be empathetic of them and their situation. You have to understand what it is they're going through, because that will make it innately interesting. And that's why you say, like, every time you get even the moments where they're just chuckling about Jesse and Jade in their predicament, that's what we're leaning into as an audience. Because we're just like, we understand that. We know what's going on. We're experiencing that with them. We're not really experiencing anything with Jesse and Jade. We're just kind of watching them as outside observers. That it's just like, it just really speaks to how unnecessary they were throughout this entire thing. So had it been just really kind of like showcase the stars of the movie, which are Chucky and Tiffany, and just have this be their honeymoon or whatever, the full thing. We don't need to focus on other characters. Like, that would have been a fun movie.
That said, another moment, in addition to like the giggling that I commented on, I posted it in my story while I was watching the movie. I reran it because I didn't want to like miss anything, so I rewound it and just taped it and paused it and posted, and then I continued the movie. But it was the moment where Warren is at the van trying to break in, and Jesse and Jade are not in it, and he doesn't know that the dolls are in it, and he certainly doesn't know that they're alive. And they're just watching him. Their heads are just turning as he like crosses from one side of the frame to the other. And then he's trying to get in and he can't. He still doesn't notice that there are dolls there. So they just kind of watch him. He walks away like almost belligerently, and they just kind of sit there placidly watching him, tilting their heads almost. And I got this like pet in the car kind of vibe. Like the way pets just kind of like sit there and just kind of regard you because, you know, you're something there to watch and they just want to see, oh, this might be interesting. What's happening? Where are you going with that? What's that? It's I don't know. It also reminded me of this dynamic. I don't remember if I brought this up in other pods, but this movie Family Plot, it was Alfred Hitchcock's last movie, I believe.
Right. It was.
And there's one couple spying on another couple, and the couple that's being spied on, there's a fight that's going on. And he keeps cutting back to the couple in the car, like it's Karen Black, and I can't remember who the man is. But they're watching Barbara Harris. I never remember the men, but Barbara Harris and this man are fighting. And they're just sitting there. I think they're even eating. And there's something so, like, delicious about just kind of like watching two characters who are in a couple watch another couple slowly kind of like tear each other apart and wondering what's going on in the head of the observers, you know, and Chucky, luckily Chucky and Tiffany, like, you know, have very few unexpressed thoughts. So I don't know. I mean, it's it didn't like this movie didn't, and this particular screening didn't bump the movie to the top for me or anything like that. I don't think it's ever been my favorite Chucky movie, and it's never been my least favorite either. But I'd have to revisit my ranking that I've done prior to this and see, like, has it moved anywhere? Because I think I did have kind of like the best time I've had seeing this movie since the first time. That was something I was really grateful for about revisiting it after not seeing it for a while.
No, that's fair. Maybe if I had been able to watch the full thing without
maybe
bullshit. But I've seen it enough, and that was the thing. Like, it was skipping over parts, and I was worried at first, but I'm just like, no, because I remember everything. Like, I'm not missing anything. Like, I have those scenes committed to memory. But I mean, if I was to do a ranking right now of like what we've watched, including the shows, the episodes of the shows, I would probably, Child's Play 2 at the top, then Child's Play 1, Season 1, probably Season 2. It's a bit of a dip from there because there's still, it's a much more developed story. I know that there's issues with it, but, you know, then Bride of Chucky, and then Child's Play 3. And keep in mind, I love all of that. Like, all of that I love. So even if Child's Play 3 or Bride of Chucky are lower down, it's like I'm still satisfied by everything in this.
Yeah, I haven't incorporated this series because it's such a different structure, and it's you know, you get so much more screen time. But off the cuff, if I were to just kind of like haphazardly put together a ranking, I think Child's Play 1 probably at the top.
Yeah.
Oh God. Child's Play Season 1 probably below that. Maybe Bride of Chucky below that. Child's Play 2 below that, and then Child's Play Season 2, and then bottom Child's Play 3. Okay. I think that's my ranking for that so far.
It's hard to rank because it's just like this, because that's the thing. Like I said, there's moments in all of these movies and shows that are just like that are top tier. So it's like just trying to condense that into one specific unit, and then how do you rank that amongst everything else? But just getting back to the whole idea of just like if they did do the movie of just focused very centrically on Chucky and Tiffany, and have those moments where they are watching things. Like, I think that like probably if they just had John Ritter as a character on his own, that might have been fun. Like, just like John Ritter like going after these dolls throughout the entire movie.
I mean, John Ritter is a master. I mean, if you go back into archival material, like in his Three's Company episodes and in like the movie Noises Off and whatnot, he is a master of physical comedy. Yeah. He could have just been kind of like Home Aloneing them the whole movie and going through like one kind of like dastardly, like them foiling his plan as he's trying to foil theirs, and he's just getting hurt. I don't know, that's a movie I would watch.
And the thing is, even though like Warren is not a sympathetic character, and we don't really know like what his reasons are, like why he's so obsessed, for lack of a better word, with Jesse and Jade, and just trying to dismantle their relationship and all that. But it's just like I still see someone who's passionately trying to do it. Like I can understand him getting in there, and it's just like, and I'm interested in that. Whereas you already mentioned that the characters of Jesse and Jade, they're just sort of like, everything would be fine if just like we were allowed to be free. But that doesn't really, it doesn't show us anything other than they're just trying to escape the confines of everything. Like all these things are pushing against them, but they're not really pushing back towards anything themselves. They just exist in this situation, in this universe, and that's all they essentially do in it. And everyone else is kind of dictating what's happening with them.
Yeah, you just made me really wish that, like, whenever Jesse comes back, if he comes back without Jade and we find out that they didn't make it,
6 months,
it would be that, number one, that would be hilarious if they only lasted 6 months and Chucky was right. Yeah. But also, if he could come to have some kind of line alluding to everything you're just talking about there, just saying like, you know, when you're young, you think, you know, all you need is for the world to give you permission to just kind of like take to the air and love the way you want. And it's a lot more complicated than that. I would love that if he kind of like learned a lesson off screen, you know, about how to love and what, you know, like that time in his life and how it was. Oh my God, that would be epic. I would adore that.
Yeah, he can come in and just, that's his purpose, is just be like a mentor for an episode or whatever to either one of the kids,
the younger kids, totally.
Whether it's
oh my God,
Jake
that'd be amazing.
Or Devin.
Devin Evans.
Devin Evans. Yeah, Devin Evans.
I'm also eternally grateful to this script just because it gave me. I called everyone a mass murderer before I saw this movie, and now I know the difference between a mass murderer and a multiple murderer. And I can actually hear it in Jesse's voice, just like, you mean multiple murderer? And I say it like that when I'm correcting people. So if they say mass murderer, but they mean
you mean David's
murderer.
Voice.
Yeah. No, when because it's the fight between Jade and Jesse.
Oh, okay.
When she's just like, so you're admitting that you're a mass murderer? He's like, you mean multiple murderer? And she's like, so you admit it? Because she's losing her shit.
Well, what is the number? What is like the definition? Like what number do you have to get to be considered?
It's not about a number. It's not about no. Mass murderer is like you're in any kind of like public setting, and I guess as long as
so like all at once.
All at once, like he said, like in a post office. That's what David said. Like, yeah, like kind of setting. As long as they're all killed at relatively the same time, that's mass murderer. Whereas multiple murderer is like your rap sheet over the years, like Freddy, Jason, Chucky.
I don't. But do they
Michael.
do they actually call them multiple murder? Like, is everyone just like, oh, that guy, he's a multiple murderer, or do they just call him like a murderer?
It's just
you know, it's kind of like it's the difference between like marriage and gay marriage. You know, like you don't actually say like
marriage is marriage, murder is murder. I want that T-shirt.
Yeah, well, it just seems like it was just something that Don Mancini like put in the script. He's just like no, because he read that just like this is what mass murder meant, and he's like multiple murderer, even though it was
but
no
it
one
still
ever
comes up.
Yeah, no, but
it still comes up in the
yeah. Does it come up in the future entries in the franchise? Okay.
Yeah. It's at one point somebody calls someone a mass murderer, and I think they're referring to like Charles Lee Ray. They're just kind of like, no, he was a multiple murderer kind of thing. I don't even remember exactly when, but I know it comes up again. I remember chuckling to myself, going like, oh, because multiple murderer. I love that. I was paying attention in school, in Chucky's school. Also, just if there is any kind of like moral compass at work in this movie, again, the thing that makes like Tiffany more sympathetic to me, aside from just kind of like being the one who really seems to visibly be carrying the torch in the relationship with Chucky, I also love her moral sense as a seemingly unscrupulous person. She has her brand of morals. There are lines she won't cross, like, or even lines that she might forgive somebody crossing if she felt they were justified. Like when Margot Kidder's daughter, I can't remember the actress's name, I think I wrote it down somewhere, Janet Kidder, who plays Diane, you know, the newlyweds, the newlyweds who are...
I didn't know that was Margot Kidder's daughter.
Yeah, if you look at her face, you can actually kind of see the resemblance. But she and her beau are the very sex-positive, shall we say, couple who are open to, you know, the polyamory in the honeymoon suite and everything like that. I just love the fact that she's in Tiffany's eyes, she's violating kind of like the sanctity of this marriage between these two kids who Tiffany has barely kind of like been invested in. She just kind of thinks they're sweet. Then she sees someone trying to kind of like to come between them and steal their money, and she calls her, and this is the line, she calls her that thieving slut. She doesn't deserve to have that ring. And I'm like, okay.
I mean,
there's something about it, like, that it's she crossed a line with Tiffany morally. Now you have to pay, and I kind of admire that.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I mean, that couple, like, I don't think that they actually were sex positive to an extent of just like wanting to have like an orgy between the couples. I think it was just they were con artists, and that's what
a ruse.
Like how they like the whole purpose of that was just like going into other people's motel rooms and stealing their stuff. And I think that that's what Tiffany was more offended by than anything else. But it's like I definitely get a sense from Tiffany. It's just like she's she's offended by things out of convenience. Like whenever it's just like, okay, like I want to kill someone, but I want to have it be justified in a way. That's how she decides to do that. With Chucky, he was just like, that she said that I was ugly or whatever. Like it usually comes down to like a vanity thing, or just going back to the original when the old lady in the elevator says calls him an ugly doll, and it's just like, fuck you.
Well, because I think Chucky's his own. Yeah, he's certainly his own brand of opportunist. Like he kills people when he doesn't even need to.
Yeah.
But there was like an overriding kind of like motive, I guess, in the first two movies in particular. Well, in the third movie too, because he could always blame Andy for it, Yeah. But but sometimes he did it just for the fun of it. Yeah. Just like, you know what, you're around, I'll kill you. I doubt. I feel like Tiffany doesn't kill because she's bored just as often as Chucky does, or just because you're around. Like, why did you climb the mountain? Because it was there. Tiffany, I think, is more impassioned. I think she requires a motive more so. It's easier, for her to kill if there's, like you said, like some justification for it. Whereas I don't think Chucky really needs to justify anything to himself or anyone else.
No.
So maybe therein lies the difference between the two of them.
That also then begs the question as to why would they kind of set up Jesse and Jade in a way to be chased after by the police as being these multiple murderers if they're planning on going into their bodies. Like, it's just, I mean, not that Chucky has ever been a practical killer.
No.
But it's just like, is this such a good idea? Like, you're trying to keep a low profile. Like, these are the bodies you're gonna go into. Or I don't think that they've decided yet. They're just like, we may as well. It's not until like the end when they're in the trailer.
They're looking to buy.
She's putting the makeup on Katherine Heigl. And I like that moment. I mean, I mostly like the scene for just like the plate throwing and all that, and just like the way that like Chucky grabs the cookie off the plate. It's just like, I don't know what it is about like the animatronics of the doll, but he's like, you know it, Pookie. And just the way he she's like coming over all Martha Stewart with the plates and all that. I don't know, there's just something about that I love.
I even love that she gives Jesse kind of like a knowing glance, almost just kind of like, see, you could have had all this, like kind of thing, because obviously she was interested enough in him to come on to him earlier in the movie, when she does that wonderful kind of like bounce on her while she's leaning on her car, and he helps her put the foul-mouthed little fuck. Oh, not the foul-mouthed. She comments on the foul-mouthed little fucker, and he helps her put unknowingly Damien in the trunk of her car.
This old shit, or whatever she calls it.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about that shit with her cigarette in her mouth. But I love that. That's another thing. Speaking to like her morals, like I feel like she comes on to him, and he's just kind of like, "Oh, no thanks." And she's like, "Why?" And he's just like, "Well, because I'm already seeing someone." It's just kind of like, "Oh, well, all the good ones are taken," and she just lets him go and then tells him to treat her right. And I'm like, "Aw," and they just kind of say goodbye, in the most friendly way. And I'm just kind of like, she respects the sanctity of like a relationship. Good for her.
I think it's funny that like he somehow remembered that conversation too to use it against them later.
Right.
He doesn't strike me as a character who would like be that like conscious of like thinking of like, how do I like manipulate them? Like, he doesn't seem like he would be that savvy.
Well, it was the whole motive. It was his whole impetus for going to pick up Jade anyway. It's just kind of like, Jade, I'll never let you cook without me doing the dishes kind of thing. You know, like, I mean, it made sense to him. It had a simplicity that I think appealed to, you know, his kind of homegrown, you know,
Perhaps,
milk-fed quality.
I also love when when she's like trying to like hide from her or whatever. Like he's like been spotted and he kind of like steps back. It's like, oh, hi, what do you want?
Right. And even when Jade, that's another thing, another strike against Jade. Sorry again to bash Jade, but when she when she finds out that he's got this money and he's got 500 waiting for him in Jersey if they just deliver these dolls, Tiffany asked him, and he's just kind of like, "What has that freak gotten you into?" I'm like, "Hey, it may be true, but you didn't really earn the right to say that, so I don't like you." Because I love that freak. You shut up about that freak. I love her.
And then of course there's like the line at the end when she calls him a midget.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yes. No, she's
just very problematic. Yeah.
Again, like maybe the second best thing. I think the best thing she does is unlock the car for him. But I think the second best thing she does is when he's trying to, when they're in the trailer and they're trying to bait the fight between Chucky and Tiffany. She picks up on it like right away, and she didn't even know that came from her. But she still somehow picks up, and he's just like, "Hey, she's not much of a." You know, not much of a housekeeper, though, right? And he's just kind of like, "Hey, babe, you know, those dishes aren't going to do themselves." It's just like, the least he can do is a dish. At least she picked up on that and then kicked. I mean, it's one of the funniest things that happens that she does for me is when she just punts Tiffany into the oven.
I always get upset, though, when after Tiffany comes out and she's all charred, because it's like, we watched her get all fabulous early on to Blondie, and now it's like all of it is ruined. Everything's destroyed. Yeah. And I mean, and I feel bad for Tiffany. I feel like, and that's another thing that annoys me in that scene, is just like, it's clearly like the camera naturally wants to hold on Tiffany, and just like as she's watching like this boring couple get together and just like, oh, true love. But it always goes back to them, and it's just like, no, I'm interested in Tiffany. Like I want to like linger on her. I want to be with her as she's observing these people. I don't want to be with them. It's
see that. Maybe it's a tell for me with characters. There's something, and this is probably just like a personal thing, but I like seeing. Like, okay, if a character sees a couple who's like, you know, lovey-dovey and, you know, in the first, stages of being in love and everything like that, or even like, you know, finding out that they're in love, like, is their response, it usually bones down to like two responses. There's either like, oh, that's sweet, or ugh, and look away, roll eyes and look away kind of thing. And I kind of like the fact that like it's established that obviously like Chucky's not going to be watching them, you know, kind of fondly. But I don't know, it's just one more thing that I feel like I get to know about Tiffany. Like she's going to like watch two people who think they're in love, who are, you know, just kind of like minding their own business and be like, I think it's sweet.
Yeah.
But I also, just to speak to like what we do get from Tiffany, I do feel bad for her towards the end. Like I don't like seeing her charred, and I especially, even though I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing because of the situation that Jesse's in after, you know, like Chucky basically abducts, quote unquote, Jade, you know, and gets her to carry him to the cemetery because he's pointing a gun at her. But the fact that Jesse knows that the only real playing card he has is Tiffany, and he doesn't want her, you know, to be this kind of like, you know, wild card, so he grabs her by the hair and starts running with her, and we just hear Jennifer Tilly going, ah, 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 ow, ow, ah, ah. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks. But I like that by the end, again, like the level of pathos we can reach with these puppets, these animatronic robots that are endowed with, you know, the means to like communicate human emotion and everything like that. The fact that like this character who we've just, you know, met basically like 90 minutes ago or 88 minutes ago has the capacity to kind of recognize that all of this shit that is happening to Chucky and Tiffany now is they kind of deserve, because they were selfish and they were reckless with other people's lives and other people's happiness. And to this day, I hope someone uncovers the tracks. I hope they were saved somewhere, because there is a track, a take that Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly recorded, because a lot of their dialogue they recorded in the same room performing with each other. I think that's another reason why that dynamic works so well. You got two, not that I give the Oscars anything, but you've got two Oscar nominated actors playing these roles, and they deserve them. But the fact that the moment where I remember hearing Don Mancini talk about the take between Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly, where she's saying like "we belong dead" and all of that. It was a particular. They just hit a note in this particular take where she said the line wrong, and she said "we should be dead," and she started to cry, and Brad Dourif started to cry. And whatever other dialogue, I don't know if it made it into the final cut, so they probably talked a lot more. But whatever exchange they had that followed that, they were both crying till the end, till they yelled cut. And Don Mancini couldn't use it because he wanted the parallel of her watching, Bride of Frankenstein in the beginning of the movie, and the line is "we belong dead," and he thought, I don't know if people are going to get it. I think we would have. I think it would have been incredible. It's still a great take, the one they used, where she got the line right. I mean, I get the emotionality, but just the fact that like these two characters are these two actors are like so connected to this relationship they've established that it's moving them to tears as they both decide that they deserve to perish or witness each other, like perishing. I don't know. There's something about that I find absolutely exquisite, and I'm really at least glad I know that take existed. I don't know if it exists anymore, but I want to hear it. Any footage I see of the two of them,
the new release.
Okay, but I have seen footage of them performing though, like alternate takes of other scenes, and it's always fascinating. And just kind of like I could watch that forever.
Yeah, there's one I saw recently. It was on Instagram Reels of just like the back and forth. I don't know if it was from this movie or
it was from this. Seed. It was who's Martha Stewart? And she's like
my idol. And I love because he really gets into like if you like watch him do the readings, like he's just like it's almost like he's like ready to pull out his hair. He's just that frustrated with like that's the Chucky voice. You just have to be frustrated with everything that you're saying.
Yeah, there's this great behavior.
It ain't easy being Chucky.
No. Well, because she delivers that line. And what does Martha say when guests drop by and you haven't had time to shop? And you see the camera goes to him in the recording studio, and he just kind of goes like he throws his arms up like, what? But he doesn't say it because it's not a line, but he's interacting with her. He's, he's working off of her. And oh my God, it's just, as an actor, or former actor, I don't know what the fuck I am. As one who has acted, I appreciate the craft in any of their exchanges. So, and then of course the reactions, some of my favorite facial reactions from Chucky doll is when she's like, fuck Martha Stewart. And he kind of goes, what? His eyes just go all buckwheat, from Little Rascals.
One of my favorites
and then later when
is...
Well,
I was gonna say one of my favorites is like when she is resurrected, and he's kind of like, because he does the similar thing of just like, what a crock.
Oh.
And then she's like raised up behind him, and she's just like she hasn't announced her presence yet, but then she screams, and he's kind of like, and lights up a little and turns around, like he wasn't expecting it. Like it kind of like threw him off for a second there.
Right. Yeah. And also in the thick of their fight when she's saying, take it from me, honey, plastic is still no substitute for a big hunk of wood. And he does this, like drop jaw, kind of angry, but also just kind of, I don't know, it's just a wacky expression from him. Yeah. It's one of, it's hilarious.
It's like, oh no, you didn't.
Had so much fun. Yeah, right? It would have been funny if they could have just one take with his hand on his hip and the other hand just kind of, waving a finger in the air. But I also appreciate like the setting, like the fact that they're on a trailer and they started on a trailer together, and here they're kind of, ending on a trailer. And I don't know, it just feels so incredibly like, the background, like Jerry, the Jerry Springer show, which existed back in the day, where, this kind of fighting was very, very common. These kind of outbursts, they were cheered on. So I don't know, all of that makes me very, very happy.
Apparently, Gina Gershon was considered for the role of Tiffany.
Really?
I'm just looking through some trivia here. Yeah. Whether that's
I
true or
mean-
not, I don't know, but
I mean,
it would have been
she
a
is.
very different.
It would have
Yeah.
been. I think she could have given an incredible performance. Also, I mean, we know from Showgirls, she knows when she's in something campy, and she knows how to
Yeah.
sell it and own it, and still
Well,
be
do
connected
you-
and interesting.
Do you think that Bride of Chucky is campy though?
I think because it doesn't take itself too seriously. As a rule, like it, I think they understand. It feels like a movie that understands.
Well, because it is
what
satire.
It is.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it leans because it leans into comedy. Comedy has to kind of know what it is, so you can work out the rhythm and the beats. And is this line funny and everything? You have to know you're doing a comedy. Whereas camp, you know, for you and I, as far as you and I have discussed, is usually most effective when it's accidental.
Yeah.
So I'd say the camp is probably the idea of camp is probably finds its way in because there are elements where it does take itself seriously, like, you know, the death exchange between the two of them, and even just like the craft behind these puppets has to be intentional. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe kind of accidentally. Maybe campy isn't the right word. I don't know. But
no, that's fair. I just
it's not-
because I'm always interested whenever this subject comes up, because I mean, like, off the top of my head, two movies that I would consider to be camp are Halloween 5 and Friday the 13th 5.
I think just like
Because it's just when something is good unintentionally, like in
Yeah.
spite of itself. Whereas I feel like all the things that make Bride of Chucky good are intentional. They were designed that way.
Yeah, but also there is a larger than life aspect to it that feels like if somebody called it camp, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I'd be
Yeah.
like, as long as they're connected performances that are also larger than life, I think that could potentially qualify it for camp alone.
Yeah.
But it's so many other things too. It's really, when you get into the weeds of it, I mean, where even the least interesting characters or characters that you and I can go on and on and on about, like we have been, it's saturated, a very saturated piece with a lot of quality work and other things. So I'm happy about that. And also I don't want it to go unsaid. I think the waterbed kill is my favorite out of the entire film.
It's
The
a great moment.
inventiveness
Yeah.
behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that it totally makes sense that that's what ignites Chucky's desire and makes him want to commit to her, at least at that particular moment and the moments that follow. So that makes me happy.
Yeah. No, it's very memorable. Unfortunately, that was another bit that got that's actually when it first started getting choppy on my 4K disc. But no, I remember.
I hope you get a new disc.
It's committed to memory. My fear is that is it gonna do the same thing with the Seed, Curse, and Cult? Fucking Scream Factory. But who knows? Maybe it's my player. I don't know. I might be jumping the gun here. But I just watched something
Maybe
the
you need
other
to clean your
night.
player.
I just watched something the other night and it was fine. So
You never know.
Yeah.
Do you check the underside of the disc? Are there any fingerprints on it?
there
or
was
anything like that?
nothing. No.
Okay.
No scratch. No fingerprints.
Do you clean your player? Do you put in like the disc that like
Is
with
there
a
a
little
thing
brush
to
on
do
it?
that? I don't know.
Yeah, you can get it. I still do that with my player, and it helps.
I'll
I do
try-
it twice.
I'll try a different 4K and see what happens. But okay. Yeah.
I keep my fingers crossed for ya.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of exhausted everything there is to say. Because that's the thing, like, this is not, like, it's not really a big epic movie. Like, it's a very small, self-contained story, which I think most of the Child's Play movies actually are. Like, I don't think that, like, we really get, and that's what makes them so special, because each one is so unique in its own way. But
Sure.
this one might be the most, or just the least intricate of any of the stories, because it's essentially it's her, and then she becomes the doll. This is the premise. She becomes the doll, and they have to get the heart of Damballa, and then there's a couple.
Yeah. It's epic because of what comes after. Because it's a part of like a large overarching story. That's what makes it.
And I think also because, like, in spite of themselves, like Chucky and Tiffany, nothing is going right. Nothing is going the way that they want it to be. It's just like at the end when she's like, "We belong dead," like you said, she just realizes that like this situation that we've gotten ourselves in, like we did to ourselves, which is a point in the favor. You know, maybe I am being too critical of the back half of this movie. But yeah, it's sort of like this. It's this idea of just like we're this is the movie, this is where we're going, and it just never happens. It's like a continuous series of just things not panning out as they should until we get to the end. And like this is like I would have never imagined like at the beginning of Bride of Chucky that this is where it would end.
It'd be interesting if while you sat from it from beginning to end the next time, if you got more of a sense of things paying off, because I did need some time away from it for a while, because I think I watched it pretty regularly in the years past, like especially 2000s and 2010s. But now that it's been, I think, maybe a little over a year, I don't remember. We did it for the old pod, I remember that, and I think that was the last time I watched it. So enough time and space really helped me.
Did we do it for the old pod?
I think we did.
I don't remember doing any Chucky movies. I'll have to look into it. Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we talked about and addressed some things before, but I don't remember.
I could be wrong.
Again, don't ask me. So could I. I
usually am. You know.
Okay, well then, if we didn't, then it's been even longer than I remember. But I also just like completely sidebar. I adore the fact that it's another clue about Tiffany and who she is. She can watch The Bride of Frankenstein and cry. I love that she can be moved to tears and empathize with Frankenstein's monster. It says so much about her and why she is with Chucky.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I think that like actually her death scene, I mean, aside from the waterbed one, like her kill is also like really well done. Like I love the bubbles. I love like Chucky just like kind of like walking into that like the curtain,
the shower curtain thing. That
effect, like that was really good. And just like the TV coming up, and just the fact that the TV hasn't been destroyed yet, it's still playing the movie. I mean, as far as like TV deaths go, like Stu Macher, Tiffany Valentine, I think they might actually do it better here. But that's I'm just saying that right now. I don't know if I can commit to that completely. But it's good. I think that like I'm trying to think of like what were the other deaths aside from the cop. I think the events around that is what makes it entertaining, and like the stoner just like rude fucking doll, man. And Tiffany's reactions and all that. And the guy at the beginning, she slices his throat with the nail file.
And the pillow muffling Damien and David with that Mack truck.
Oh, that was hilarious. That was just funny.
I watch it and I'm just kind of like, this is proof that they're wrong in Scriform, where they say like, in order to survive a horror movie, you basically have to be gay. I'm like, this is case in point. He wasn't even killed by the killers. Like he was killed by circumstance.
Around them, and I love the like, don't move. That works too. No, that was good. But that, it's like, you have to be gay, but maybe like be gay, maybe have gay agency.
Yeah, there you go. Don't just be there to kind of like uplift your straight counterparts.
And even like in the first scene where we're introduced to like when they're driving away and then Jesse reveals himself in the back seat, I feel like we're still more within the perspective of David, because he's sort of like as their chauffeur. It's just like why he's still the most interesting one out of all three of them, yet he has just no character agency. So. No. Yeah, and then the poor coroner at the end, or whoever who's exhuming the coffin. Who just shot off screen.
The one who always reminds me of Malcolm McDowell when I look at him, and then I'd see his face and I'm like, oh, that's so not Malcolm McDowell. But he's got kind of like that Malcolm McDowell, like especially in like Rob Zombie's Halloween quality for me. Lieutenant Preston.
No, I'm talking about that. No, there was like, I don't know if he's dead. He was just being attacked. I mean, like the guy who was digging up the grave. We don't actually see him.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. Okay, that guy. Yeah. And then of course, did you already mention Warren? Yeah, Warren with the. Well,
first That's another thing that like I love about all the Child's Play. I mean, it might have started here, because I don't really remember it too much in the first three, where Don Mancini just like really leaned into the references to other horror movies, and it's done and this is like when Scream does it best, is when it's sort of not really like name droppy, because I feel like that's where it is now, when you have like the scenes of Mindy just being like Halloween and Friday the 13th and blah blah blah. I'm like, this is not how Kevin Williamson would do. I mean, Kevin Williamson would obviously mention these things, but there would actually be stuff implemented in the movie, which also I'll give credit to Wes Craven for, which is like, this is something that we've previously saw in a different movie, and that's what Don Mancini does references right. And because you have like the head turning around on Chucky at the beginning, which is like Exorcist. You have like the one that you mentioned, and even like going into the next movie, like it's almost like building up the expectation when he chops through the door, and you're expecting him to say the line that you think he's going to say. It's just like, I can't think of a single thing to say right now.
To say.
Yeah. It's just like, and even going into the series of just like, I think she's starting to suspect something. Like,
very
like
much so.
That's like Don Mancini, like why, like, first of all, he's gay and he loves horror movies. And it's just like, it's just a perfect combination of just making, like, that's why this franchise is so good.
His point of view. I agree.
And I mean, had Kevin Williamson, stuck more closely with Scream, things might have been different, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through these old podcasts. I don't see any Chucky.
Okay. It's been even longer, and I was mistaken.
Yeah.
I'll own it.
Yeah. But that's just the old one. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Anything else you want to add before we do some cherry picking?
The only reference I can think of prior to this movie that I right away comes to mind is just the slow approach of the foster mom in 2, and then the turnaround reveal makes me think about Mrs. Bates and Psycho. Yeah. That might have been the first one. I don't know.
Yeah, that was very second. We might have discussed more on that episode. I'd have to. I never go back and listen to our episodes, but I seem to recall, because this conversation
that one came up. It did come up.
But we talked about like references and whatnot. So yeah, there could be more. Okay, anyway, yeah, let's wrap this up and let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
First order of business, cherry on top. I mean, come on,
Come on. It's not even a conversation. Just put her there.
It's Tiffany Valentine.
Yes.
And she only gets better. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the trajectory of the cherry picker, or the cherry on top, as when we do move through the other movies. Because who did we have? We had, every time I have to be reminded of this, Karen in 1.
I need the spreadsheet. Hold on.
Was it? That's right. Amethyst Frost and the spreadsheet of just like all the facts. But I think it was Andy in 2, and then 3 was Chucky.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and now
I'm waiting for it to load here.
Yeah.
Here, let me see.
Okay.
Go on.
Anyway. Well, while you're doing that, let's bring up the poll results from last week. So last week we asked you all who deserves to die the most in Friday the 13th, Part 3. I nominated Rick Bombay. You nominated Shelley Finkelstein. And those are canonically their last names, I guess, according to the internet. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final vote was 238 for Rick versus 903 for Shelley.
Wow.
Maybe I should have nominated Chili. just to see if she would have been
final
a better
standoff
contender.
we could have seen. Yeah right.
Yeah.
So far I've got Karen Barkley in 1, Andy Barkley in 2.
There we go.
And I'm looking at, where's 3? 3 is somewhere in here. Child's Play 3.
Yeah, it's Chucky.
It's Chucky, yes.
Yeah, it was recent.
Okay.
I remember. Yeah. Speaking of
Amethyst.
Speaking of Amethyst Frost, first comment. The first time I saw this movie, when I was an overweight teen with low self-esteem and a chip on my shoulder, I had some amount of sympathy for Shelley at that time. But rewatching as an adult, he really is so much more unbearable than I remembered. And Vera sums up the situation perfectly when she tells him, Do you want to say it? I know you're.
I do like you, but not when you do these stupid things.
Only for him to call her a bitch under his breath. Kill him, especially because him dying gives us the camp perfection of Shirley's dead. He's dead. Oh my god. Oh my god.
And I misquoted for anybody who's like banging their head against their dashboard. It's not when you act like a jerk. That's what follows. But I do like you. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Well, the way that Amethyst quoted it here was, but not when you act like this.
Okay, it's not when you act like a jerk is the line. I just double checked my notes because I wanted.
Oh my
I was
god!
Like,
Sorry, I'm just saying. I was shook
oh my god!
when I saw that
Oh
Chili
my God.
beat Shelley by 1 vote on the old podcast. P.S.
Right.
Since Bride of Chucky is the next episode, can I give a dishonorable shout out to the girl at the rest stop who shrieks, "There they are!" I don't know if that's how she said it. At Jesse and Jade, despite them being nowhere near Needlenose's car when it explodes. She's an irrelevant bit part, but I can't stand her. Totally my version of the blood is too red guy. Or
I
a
like
girl
the way you think.
in the video store who doesn't know Dee Wallace.
I like the way you think, Amethyst. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't even think about her. Yeah, she does suck.
No, me neither.
Historian. That was a very difficult one for me. Historian. Shelley has revolting nice guy energy. It retroactively sometimes angers that he's the origin of iconic Jason's mask. John Mills Sip. How on earth could you not vote for Shelley for this one? He was a downright terror. I have never felt more satisfied with the character dying, and I still want him to die again. Rob Rangel, interested in hearing y'all's take on this movie, at least out of the original quadrilogy. It's my favorite entry. I thought about voting Rick because I was off-put by how little care he showed Chris and her trauma. But Shelley was annoying by pulling rude pranks and playing victim. I ultimately voted Shelley. I predict Shelley is Zack's pick, as Rick seems someone Eddie would be more bothered by. Oh,
wow.
We can still surprise people.
Yeah, right? Look at that.
Yeah. I almost wish I did pick Shelley now. I just picked Rick because he's boring. Where are we here? Okay.
Shelley's memorable. Rick less so. Rick's death is more memorable than Rick is.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah, there's that.
The wire that you can visibly see on the eyeball is more memorable than Rick. His death has more dimension than his character.
Mary Jo Conrad is more memorable than Rick. I don't even know Rick's last name.
It's Bombay.
I know. You just said it, and I still don't know. I'm not going to retain it. I will never remember it. I guarantee you.
David Naja. In defense of Shelley, he is the one responsible for Jason's iconic hockey mask. So I guess that's a different argument. The same argument, but different sides.
All right.
Oh gosh, is she going to be okay?
Oh, it's just almost her dinner, but it's not quite yet. She's just meowing because she usually does. I'm surprised she didn't start an hour ago. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. David Garrido. All of Shelley's scenes mostly have him pranking everyone, including faking his death at one point, so it's not surprising that Jason killed him. Sean Princick. First vote again. So exciting. Shelley for sure. He was so obnoxious and terrible to everyone around him. This makes it even more satisfying when Jason takes his hockey mask and uses it throughout the franchise, almost as an FU to Shelley. However, I hate how some people will actually tell the actor how much they hate Shelley. If you hate a character, recognize that those feelings are centered on the character and not the actor. The art is different from the artist. I don't remember Rick at all, which explains my feelings towards this movie in general. Outside of the funky opening theme, I can never remember anything about this film. Most people seem to really love it, but I don't get it. For a semi-standard Friday adventure, I'd rather pick part 7.
Wow. I mean, I liked it the least I've liked it in a while after this screening, but I still think it's memorable. I still find it very memorable.
And I was talking to Eric because he was watching it at the same time that I did, and he said it was the best experience he ever had watching
I know,
it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
always...
there's quite a few people who are very, very beholden to this film, and that's fine.
And just because you have a different opinion, it doesn't mean you're wrong.
Yeah.
It just means that
Or us.
It just means that you kind of suck. But you know.
Oh God, there we go. The inescapable. That's
Just
why you're Chucky.
inescapable. I am not
Compliment,
Chucky.
and then it's
Just
like
the
here's
back-
the
the
meal.
backhanded-
Now here's the check.
The backhanded compliment, yeah.
Very-
Dylan Jameson. This was perhaps the hardest cherry picker for quite some time for me. On one hand, there's Rick, who gives me a weird, creepy vibe and totally dismisses Chris Higgins when she's talking about her experience with Jason. But then there's Shelley, and he has always pissed me off so much because of his mindset. I'm a nice guy. You should like me. Gives off major gaslighter and narcissistic vibes to me.
Yeah.
Although he does have self-esteem issues, as seen earlier in the film when he has a line, putting himself down based on his looks, he still is my choice to die.
Mm-hmm. Would you be yourself if you look like this? It is an incredibly quotable movie too. Go on.
Yeah. Josh Kramer. Shelley is the definition of being friend-zoned.
Ooh. The cinematic manifestation of being friend-zoned. Yeah, agree.
Fred Hodder. Honestly, this one was hard to choose as they both get on my nerves. I ended up choosing Shelley just because Rick had the better death, even if it looks admittingly goofy, as at least there is no one running around yelling, "Rick's dead!" God, I was happy when she got skewered like a redacted pig. Plus, I didn't like the way he acted towards Vera. I would hate to see how that played out if Jason hadn't shown up.
Yeah.
They need to get Shelley back just insert her in every Friday the 13th movie after everyone dies, to just run in and out of each scene saying this person, X person is dead. It's like, who invited her? What's with the soccer mom?
Yeah. Right. Oh wait, she's got a boot full of weed around her neck.
A boot full of weed. Yeah. I should have nominated her. Oh well. Matthias Eggerman. Shelley is maybe a magician. He can pack his weight to little suitcase with a spear gun and a mask. His jokes are just no fun, even without a killer in the woods.
Yeah, that's
His
100%.
He can pack his whole life in that little thing. So I guess there's really not much of a life.
I just wish that there could have been a face palm on Vera after he's just like, "You'll see," and she just go, "Oh God, no, please! I don't want to see."
It's like, is it too late to drive me back home? It's like her. Exactly. The only reason she went on this trip was to get away from her mother. You know.
Probably. Yeah. I think that's why she stayed, and also she's. I think she's more decent than I am, certainly.
Yeah. That would have been if she had lasted a little longer and there had been other people dying, and then for her to just be like, oh, I wish, she could have had the Mary Jo Conrad argument, not Mary Jo Conrad, just been like, oh, I should have stayed at home with my mom, I would have had a much better time arguing with her than dying here with you people. She could have had the Angelina moment, just die with a bunch of second-rate Friday the 13th actors.
Like you! And then Chris Higgins and Rick just watch her get dragged off screen. Yeah. That would have been great.
Yeah. Silent Saturn. I vote for Shelley because his stupid prank made Rick put his shirt back on. Not cool. Shelley, I was just enjoying the view. Seeing the wallet tickled me, though. I remember all the kids had those kinds back in the day. I was all about having
the Velcro
them in flashy colors. I think mine were black with neon yellow outlines.
Oh,
what do you think of
burgundy? And mine was burgundy, and it had a sunset on it.
Oh, I don't
the Velcro wallet that I had. Yeah,
I don't remember wallets except the one I've had for ever.
It was my first. It was my first, so that's why I remember it.
What do you think? Do you think that Rick is hot?
I think he's aesthetically pleasant. I get it. I would have. I remember, again, it was one of those cases where because they weren't so forthcoming, or at least I didn't read it about the whole assault thing. I didn't get that angle. I thought she just was traumatized from being, I guess, dragged by him or something when I was a kid. So the fact that like this guy is like pulling these bales of hay and she's just saying no, just let me get a chance to know you. But I'm like, this is a good way to get to know him. Just come on, strip it off. Like that was but I was a hormone laden closeted teen, so of course I was going to be like, get on it, honey, he's glistening,
Yeah. No, I never got that appeal with him. Maybe it's just because he's so like of that era. Like he just like seems like maybe if he just like had a different style of just like a different time, it might have looked different. But like like the what was his face in 2, played by Russell Todd. The one who's like he's kind of like the prankster. He's the one that like steals.
Yes.
Scott. He was always like my secret Friday the 13th crush. And
no, I usually looked for a crush per movie. Yeah. I usually looked for somebody to have a crush on per movie. There was no one. I can't think of anyone in the first one. I mean, maybe what's his face who dies last. I don't even remember his name. But the one who's
I should know it. What is because Adrian King says
I know like, it's been too long.
Bill's out there.
Bill. Yeah.
Bill. Yeah, in part 3, I don't know.
I wouldn't choose Rick first. I don't think. I think I'd probably go with I can't remember any other names. The one who got her pregnant. The one who got the girl pregnant. What was his name? Andy.
Because that's hot.
I might have gone for Andy.
Yeah.
Because even while I was watching it, I was like, "There's nothing particularly striking about him, but he's easy on the eyes,
Okay. So we think we'll pick a Friday the 13th crush.
Ooh,
which movie?
Per movie?
Do we have one for Freddy versus Jason? I don't know.
Good question. I mean, I think I mentioned in the pod that what's his name? The one whose brother committed suicide. I was going to say that one.
Frizzle, but no, Frizzle's the
one who says the one who says coffee, make friends with it and everything. I mean, I will say he flashes us his butt and it's not bad. Like, so
okay. I'll have to think on it. Because I don't.
I will too. Because what other guys? It's him and Will, and I wouldn't choose you. You bag on me because you really feel bad about yourself. I'm not going to choose that guy. I'm not going to choose the Jay and Silent Bob ripoff guy, the stoner. Even though he's cute now, I would choose him now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's tough. I'd choose Freddy.
No, I know who I would choose. I would choose the cop, played by Lachlan Monroe. There you go. Problem solved. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's. It's just.
I forgot about him.
Like
the movie literally forgets about him. I forgot about him.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like nothing happens. Like even his death is so incidental. I can't even remember if he has a death. He does, but I don't remember what it is.
No, he got electrocuted.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, sure. Lachlan Monroe.
Saving what's
his
face,
show us that baby dick from Scary Movie.
Okay, where are we? XX RE2 Evil XX. Rick for me. We're back to talking about who we want to die. Rick for me, even though Shelley's death is low-key needed more in order to finish Jason's signature look. Slammin' Sammy Joe once again reminded how even if Jason wasn't there, someone definitely would have been dead before the end of summer.
Yeah.
Who? Okay. Who would have been dead?
Someone.
Shelley. Oh no, I think because they would have burned the place down. The biker gang.
Oh right.
Yeah.
The barn.
Yeah.
Okay.
The barn. Yeah. Wow, so cool.
Yeah. Look at this. This feels good.
Yeah.
I like her. Fox.
She was great. Yeah. Paul B. Don't know why Shelley gets so much hate. Aside from the final girl, he's the only memorable character in this fun but forgettable installment.
Oh, I disagree.
Meme City. Rick got his head crushed, eye popped, and thrown through a damn window, and all we wanted was to smash. All he wanted was. I'm just reading what it says. All we wanted was to smash Chris Higgins. LOL.
I think it's he. All he wanted was to smash Chris Higgins.
Yeah, because I didn't want to smash her.
No.
I didn't pick her.
No one on this pod that we're recording right now ever wanted to smash Chris Higgins. No, thank you.
No. Thomas
Even
Baker.
if I went that way.
Thomas Baker. My vote goes to Shelley, and that is all.
Okay.
Scaredy Cat. A friend and I just showed another friend this movie for his first time yesterday, and I took a screenshot of this before choosing, and they both chose Rick, and I'm in the same boat. LOL. Fuck Rick. Sure, Shelley was annoying, but I felt for him more than Rick, who was one of the more emotionally unintelligent characters, but also has a connection to our main final girl. No way. Definitely doesn't feel that connection. A lot of red flags from this dude. And then a shrug, crying emoji. Exactly. Yeah, there's nothing connecting him to this movie. Or to Chris. Sucked says Rick because Shelley brings a much needed personality that is missing from the other main characters, minus the Cheech and Chong characters and the bikers, who are straight up embarrassing and obvious for the time period. It is mind-blowing that the stoner character came back into popularity in the early to mid-2000s, i.e. Freddy vs. Jason, good lord. Who you were just talking about.
Much needed. Yeah, right. Much needed. I've never heard Shelley described that way, but okay. Sure.
By GB. This is my favorite one. Well, there we go. It's always someone's favorite. Blueberry Saturn. Aw, Shelley. These people are mean. He just wanted to be accepted by a bunch of assholes. Can't anyone relate?
No, we can relate, but it's the way he went about it, like continually looking for sympathy when he's the one who keeps painting himself into a corner. He needs to learn some tact. Like, the fact that people are angry every time you try to get attention should probably tell you something, especially if you're a teenager and not like a 5-year-old. But whatever.
G Boney, fuck Rick. He provides nothing and was just Chris's hay bale slinging, denim wearing barn candy. Shelley and Vera
candy.
Shelley and Vera had the only relationship that was close to relatable, and more screen time should have been devoted to them. My only regret is Jason didn't squeeze out both of Rick's eyeballs. On a happier note, I thought the Saw pod was one of your best ever. Great insight and laughs by the bowlful. Well, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't even remember recording it. I know we did, but I can't remember.
We did
what
just
we
a few
talked
weeks
about.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Winter Wonder. Gotta be Shelley. Rick is boring, but kind of hot in a douchey early 80s way. And he had to put up with Chris's BS. Nobody deserves that. But Shelley is just cringe. Eddie was on point with everything he said. He was so unlikable, and the movie tried so hard to make him sympathetic. And yes, Vera deserved so much better than what she got. Vera Sanchez, Chris Higgins are the OG Helen Shivers, Julie James. I've actually seen fans of the franchise call Vera a bitch for not giving Shelley a chance. As stated by Eddie, Vera treated Shelley better than he deserved and would have probably come around to him if he wasn't such a dummy. Plus, flip the sex of the characters around and make Vera studly Latino Papi Victor and have frumpy Bob Ross fro lady Shelley make advances towards him. Those same doucherinos would be mocking Shelley for being annoying and way out of her league. Gotta love those sexist incel fanboys.
Nice insight. Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Jace the 13th. Rick because he is a 45-year-old man trying to get with a teenager.
He definitely, like, we're in Jessie Jade territory where she's obviously underage and he should not be poking around there. Yeah.
I still would for Jessie.
I mean, but if I were, I mean, I would too, but the problem is 17-year-old me would have made a mistake, you know, running away with him. I would have been like, let's wait until my 18th birthday, please. Can we?
No, I would not
I
have
wish I
run-
would have had the presence of mind.
I would not have run away. I don't want to like. I mean, I know that her search situation is different, but I mean, I like to be close to home. You know, I don't like traveling.
You don't want to be away from your albums and your Blu-rays, all your physical media and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you can't take all of that with you in the van.
Exactly. Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
that's another
Otherwise,
Jason,
like,
not
think
a
of that's
collector
how
of anything.
No, she has no fandom towards anything. But that's like, at a certain point, if that was me, like Chucky and Tiffany would just get so fed up because you'd be like, what's with this guy? Why's he got to bring the whole fucking house with him? You know, like, you're like, let's kill him and just find someone else.
You'd just be gazing lovingly, like holding your collectibles and looking at Jesse.
The Dan Tierg, he called Vera a bitch. Need to say more? Elliot from Orlando. Ooh, this movie. So many picks for the cherry picker from our leading lady who makes her pregnant friend sleep in a goddamn hammock. The pregnant friend who drinks beer despite being, you know, pregnant. The utterly useless pothead couple, especially Chili with that iconically awful, oh my god, jogging around. The biker gang and their blatant racial stereotyping of that era. Even the fucking shop girl for being a racist jerk. We don't take no food stamps. The only character I think who didn't drive me batty was Vera, but between Rick, the horny, emotionally unavailable douche, and Shelley, whose pity me attitude made him insufferable to watch, I'm going with Shelley. It makes no sense at all that he wants Vera to like him, through his antics, and she lets him down very respectfully and even goes to the trouble of trying to get his wallet out of the water. Shelley deserves it, although I wouldn't mind tossing Rick in there for a twofer. Nate, tough call. Shelley is a decent guy underneath, but so freaking annoying, and Rick is less annoying, but a total eggplant emoji. Completely insensitive to what Chris has gone through. Yeah, I'll go with Rick. G-Pal. Bye-bye, Shelley. Mi amour. He is a nice guy, but he is unbearable. Stephanie Eileen. Shelley is only in the movie, so Shelley's dead. So Shelley's dead can be screamed in that awful manner that makes me laugh. So yeah, kill Shelley. Cuff 5. I hate Rick so much, and I don't even know why or how to articulate it. Shelley's annoying, but he ain't that bad. There's just something about Rick I just vehemently dislike. Gotta get it. Gaming. Okay, call me weird, but I like both of these characters, but in the end, I did pick Shelley. Gavin Hurst. Shelley's so annoying. Get him chopped up. Green hair. Neither really. It should be the racist cashier at the mini mart they visit. And James Morant. Shelley, he was a jerk, scaring people so they could like him.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm at odds here because I can't for the life of me even try to anticipate what people will lean toward because I don't know. I honestly don't know. So I do have to.
Well, we do know that the it was them girl, or you know.
Right. We got one. I got one vote if I choose her.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she, I don't even know if she has a name. But this. But no,
snitchy drive-in girl.
Snitchy McPointer face.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to choose snitchy McPointer face just because she didn't really resonate with me that much. It's really between two, and I think I have to choose the one who my body is just telling me, yeah, you have to your conscience and your heart. I have to vote like I advise all of you to do every week. I'm gonna go with Warren Kincaid. Just because John Ritter is so good when he wants to. We've discussed this previously in the Buffy Season 1 discussion we did after dark. Check it out on Patreon.
Season 2.
Patreon, folks.
Season 2.
Season 2. Sorry. Yeah. I thought it was season... Yeah, see, can't even... I so desperately don't want to remember it. But he was good. Like, he's good at being that kind of unscrupulous... cold, selfish, for like no reason, energy, and at the same time, it not feeling like a caricature. And I met him in person, and he's a delightful man, really sweet and accessible, and like everything you would expect from his other roles that he's played when he's lovable and and clumsy. But I think the line was crossed for me where I'm just kind of like, I don't like the way this man thinks when he puts the first impasse on their happiness, and Jesse says, "Fuck you," and he says, "But you won't, not Jade anyway, not anymore." And I'm like, ew, like that actually makes me feel sorry for Jade, just to be talked about like that by your, shall we say, uncle, or even just your guardian, the man who is in charge of like your upbringing until you're 18, and then says, "And after that, you can go fuck yourself for all I care." That would make me sympathetic toward anyone, even if they are a nightmare, because it's abuse, and it's gross. It's objectification in the most perverse, unspoken way. Like you can't nail down exactly why. It just makes your skin crawl. I think he's a gross person, and I could have watched him die 3 or 4 more times. So I think he deserves to die
twice,
the most.
Yeah. All right.
He died 2 times, and I want more. So there you go. How about you?
And just
Zach?
to keep this short and sweet, I'm gonna go with Norton.
Really?
His crony. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who else. It's not gonna. I wouldn't pick Jade because it's not her. It's just them together. And there's rules. There's rules. We can't have more than one.
Right.
Per one character. So yeah, I'll go with Norton. Because
Okay.
he's just doing it for the money, and he's essentially
Yeah.
like, just like, is it, I forget what the exchange was, but he's just like, yeah, the money or whatever, he's getting,
Yeah.
that, and that's almost
you're
worse.
right.
He's not even,
Right.
it's not even like a thing that he's doing because he feels some sort of, like sense towards it, or just like the same way that Warren would. It's just like, just, he just wants to get paid. He's completely detached. Like, he could do the right thing, but he doesn't. So off with his head.
We chose the 2 crooked cops. Good for us.
Yeah. Well, there's a third one as well if you count the one at the beginning, but
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he was getting paid by Tiffany, so I'm kind of okay with that.
you're just like Tiffany, like just justifying whatever. Just like, okay, I have like my moral line here.
I am a Tiffany apologist.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I mean, there are times we'll discuss it when she crosses the line for me, and when I think we already have actually, but no, it may come up again, and who knows? Maybe she'll cross the line for me again. But I love her. I love her in this movie.
Those are your nominations. You can vote for Warren, or you can vote for Norton. The polls will be open on Patreon, Instagram, YouTube. If you are new to the Cherry Picker and you are just watching us for the first time on YouTube, you can listen to us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. If you are listening to us and you want to watch us, you can go to YouTube. So subscribe to us there. Follow us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. And again, if you want to support on Patreon, you will get early access to the episodes. Next week is the Cherry Picker After Dark, where we will be doing the slasher killer rankings. But where can they find you on social media, Edward?
I'm right here. No, on social media you can find me.
Where are you?
Edward is Truth is the blanket handle. So just look for Edward is Truth, traditional spelling, all one word, on YouTube, Letterboxd, Instagram, and I mean, I have a TikTok account. I'm not really on it. I need to figure out.
Okay, we're running long here.
Yeah. Anyway, how about you, Zach?
Instagram, Retro Bitch Face. YouTube, Zack Cherry, ZackCherry. Twitter, ZackCherry8. Letterboxd, Zack Cherry. And yeah, that's it. What do we got going on next week?
That's a really good question, Zach.
No, not next week, but the next public episode. on October 31st, what do we got going on?
That's a really good. Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
You mean the After Dark?
No, we just talked about After Dark. What is?
Yeah, we already talked about that. Okay,
I
don't.
What is in 2 weeks from now? What are we talking about?
I don't remember.
It's October 31st. What is October 31st?
It's 2 days before Dia de los Muertos. Halloween?
Which one? Which one?
I don't remember which one.
The best one of the franchise?
We already did H2O. What?
Oh my god. Join us on October 31st for Halloween Resurrection. Or you can get early access on Patreon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right back.